Please close that back door and keep it closed until we get to the point where we can take a break. Yes. At this time, I'll call our monthly meeting to order, and please make sure your cell phone is either turned off or in the vibrate mode at this point in time. At this time, we're going to have our invocation by Commissioner Langley, and we'll have the pledge by Commissioner Buzzio. Please stand.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we are grateful and thankful for this very moment in time. We thank you for allowing us to assemble together one more time. And God, we just grant that you give us your peace and your sincerity in all that we say and all that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're down to item number D, conflict of interest disclosure statements. Any commissioner have a disclosure or conflict that they would like to disclose? Get it right, okay? All right. Item number E is the board organizations. The first item on that, in that section, is presentations to Commissioner Buzzio, and I have two of those. The first one here says this certificate is hereby awarded to Commissioner Ron Buzzio on the third day of December 2018 for outstanding service to the citizens of Beaufort County through commitment, dedication, direction, and leadership while serving as a Board of Commissioner representative to the Beaufort County EMS Oversight Committee. And the second one here is the presented to Ronald W. Buzzio, Beaufort County Commissioner, in appreciation and recognition for your professionalism and dedicated service to Beaufort County from December 2014 to December 2018.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to say a few words. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board, and Beaufort County residents, it has been an honor for me to work with you and for the residents for the past 4 years. A majority of the board has been able to work together without compromising our core principles for the betterment of the residents of Beaufort County, and I thank you for that. As we know, if you want to address important issues, you must work together as a team. During these 4 years, we have been able to address a number of issues in a bipartisan manner. When we differ, we have been professional in those disagreements. It has not been easy to accomplish all that was required for our residents and county, mainly due to state funding cutbacks to the counties. There's still much to be done, but the incoming board, working together as a team in a bipartisan manner, will be able to address a number of issues. Hopefully the state will stop mandating unfunded mandates that impact our schools, tax abatements for solar energy facilities, to name a few. To the residents of Beaufort County, I say thank you for allowing me to serve as one of your county commissioners. And to the county employees who are the best, I say thank you for your support. And goodbye.
The next item is the swearing in of the newly elected commissioners. And Katie? All right.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be able to be here to swear in the three commissioners newly elected. We get Commissioner Dethridge, Waters, and Booth. And gentlemen, before we bring your people up, I would just like to say that we all know that we lost a President of the United States, 41, George Herbert Walker Bush. And in reading about all the things that he accomplished, I was struck by something that he said to his senior advisors a couple of days after the inauguration. And he told them, "There is no higher honor than to serve free men and women, no greater privilege than to labor in government beneath the great seal of the United States and the American flag." And I think for these three gentlemen and all the commissioners, there's no greater honor than to labor in government in the county of Beaufort under our great flag of the state of North Carolina and the United States of America. Gentlemen, if you would have your Bibles, and if you place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do each of you solemnly and sincerely swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the government thereof, and you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of the United States to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God?
I will.
And do you and each of you swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office as a member of the Beaufort County Board of Commissioners according to the best of your skill and ability, according to law, so help you God?
I will.
Congratulations.
This is a desert.
Yeah. I want to get a picture of the three of y'all and me, okay? Yes, sir. All right. All right. All right. All right, man. Hold on.
For everyone in this room, these are my two granddaughters. This is Amelia Susan Dethridge, Mira Grace Lockman, and my better half, Lincoln.
Good job.
And this is Stanley. And this is my grandson. This is Todd McKinney.
Quality is something funky.
And this is my wife, Ella. Y'all, I gotta go home.
Mr. Chairman, give me just one moment to get my stuff.
All right. This is probably the most fun we're going to have tonight.
I'm afraid numerous times. Get all my stuff together.
And beverage.
At this time, we're going to have the election of the chairman and the vice chairman, and at this time, I'll turn it over to the board's clerk, Katie.
Yes, gentlemen, at this time, I'm accepting nominations for the chairman for 2019.
I would like to nominate Jerry Evans as chairman.
Okay?
Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir.
it is my distinct privilege, my high honor, to nominate the longest-serving county commissioner in Beaufort County, modern Beaufort County times, and probably the most experienced, the most knowledgeable. And I've served for 18 years, and I got to put him on a pedestal ahead of me and above me. I would submit to you, not for nomination, Hood Richardson.
Any others? At this time, I'd like to see a show hands for Commissioner Evans and Commissioner Richardson. Commissioner Evans, you are chairman for 2019.
Thank you. I got it.
Chief. Yeah, I'll take it. Well, it's got chairman on it. Katie,
put your
Katie's
name out.
responsible for doing that.
Yeah, she'll do that.
This time we'll make nominations for the vice chairman for 2019.
Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir.
I nominate Stan Deathridge.
Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir.
I nominate Jerry Langland.
Are there any others? This time I'd like to see a show of hands for Commissioner Deathridge and Commissioner Langley. Commissioner Langley, you are vice chair. And at this time, the chairman has the opportunity to
At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Waters, Mr. Dessler, just to switch chairs.
I've been there before.
He ain't inside me.
Have I been beside you, Ed?
No,
Well, get ready, buddy.
you get
There's a
ready.
fireball waiting over here for you.
You're not going to make me move again, are you?
We're ready to move forward with the agenda. Now we're at items for presentation. Mr. Gil Davis.
Commissioners, I'm here to represent the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council.
Podium.
Gentlemen, I'm the chairman of the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council for Beaufort County. I've been this since the early 90s. For the last 10 years, we have got the same amount from the state. And as of December 1st next year, they'll be adding 16 and 17-year-olds to our responsibility. And in all honesty, we don't have the funds to provide for services to these young people. And we request that you submit a resolution to the state legislator asking for an increase in the funding for all of the juvenile crime prevention councils in the state of North Carolina. Do any of you have any questions?
Any questions of Mr. Davis? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Betsy Bailey.
Chairman Evans, we need a vote on the resolution.
I'm sorry. Hang on one here.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair,
Let him close
Going
that.
out. Okay.
I make a motion. Sure. We support the resolution.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Gil.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Ms. Bailey?
No, the door closed.
Huh?
The door closed.
We need to
3.
get the door closed, please, for recording.
I have several of those with me, Commissioner. They're trying to get in.
Okay.
That daughter came because my granddaughter. Stan.
Did they like it?
He was sick.
Really? Step around.
I saw him leave. Yeah.
Hang on one second.
Okay.
Just let me in. Do you know?
He's safe.
If you're standing, these are open.
Oh, yeah.
put it where I can get to it.
Don't need it.
I probably will.
Don't listen to it already.
A lot of it. Times 2, 3 times. Not like Jerry though. I need divine guidance. I'll just go down.
See, you don't know the Bible.
I'll keep it close.
Ready, sir?
You got all your people?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Evans and Commissioners, for allowing us to present to you this evening. The purpose of this presentation is to update you on the status of cooperation between Beaufort County Animal Control staff and our very valued outside agencies, and I'll miss some of them, but most especially the Humane Society of Beaufort County and other agencies in which work with Marty, represented by Marty, and helping and representing the animal welfare community. I'm sure each of you can remember not so long ago there was a spirit of disagreement that we had between our staff and some of those of outside of staff in the animal community, and we really had what began to be a failure of communication. And we all can have different opinions of what led to the disagreement. Personally, speaking and looking at it, I think primarily it was due to our separate structures and our separate missions, responsibilities in which we had. For instance, the mission of the Humane Society of Beaufort County is a major education push with an understanding of spaying and neutering. Beaufort County staff has a responsibility of words such as enforcement. Nobody likes to hear that word. But responsibility of enforcement of laws and ordinances, investigation of animal cruelties, and of course the operation of our animal shelter. And although at the end of the day we all want animals to have a safe and healthy life, we do have two totally different missions. But we're here today to present some forward progress, I do believe, from where we have been. In the last 6 months, a voluntary advisory committee has been established with the main goal of serving as a mechanism for continued communication and improvement in the overall animal welfare system. And although we're not holding hands together and singing Kumbaya every day, we still have disagreements. We do have the ability to come around the same table and to talk about things and make forward progress. One of the major milestones in the forward progress, in my opinion, has been the development of the Betsy Bailey Nelson Coalition Agreement. And I'd like to say that the beginning of this agreement was brought on by Dr. Poffenberger. She brought to me what is called an assimilar accords, try to get it out right, and it started our conversations of coming up with the agreement you have in front of you. I'm not going to read the entire agreement because I know you've been able to see it, but there are a few things I'd just like to bring out. First of all, the mission, to work together to save the lives of healthy and treatable companion animals, understanding that all stakeholders need to have a mutual goal of saving animals. Number 3, we believe the euthanasia of healthy and treatable animals is a community-wide problem requiring community-based solutions. Number 4, an agreement to foster a mutual respect for one another. Number 5, we understand that we need all communities to embrace the vision and the spirit of this agreement. Number 6, we understand the great importance of community coalitions, different groups going by things in different manners, but all working towards the same common end. Number 7, we understand the programs such as adoption, spay and neutering, education, cruelty investigation, enforcement of animal control laws and regulations, behavior and training assistance, and feral cat management are all important parts of trying to diminish or to be able to take care of our animals and diminish those that have to be euthanized. Number 8, we identify problem language which is offensive to each other in the group and try to refrain from that language. We believe the importance of transparency, the open sharing of accurate and complete animal sharing data and statistics. And lastly, as you see in number 10, support the advisory committee. We are committed to continuing dialogue, analysis, and potential modification of this vision as needs change and as progress is made toward achieving our mission. I would like to bring out who serves on this committee. Billy Laster, our Chief of Animal Control, Ms. Christy Barnt, our County Veterinarian of Record, Dr. Poffenberger as the Humane Society Board President. Sally Midgetts, one of our officers, is the Volunteer Program Director. Stacy Pack is a Volunteer Program Liaison. Miss Margaret Peterson, which she's not here, is she? Miss Margaret Peterson is our Feline Representative and Humane Society Liaison. Miss Barb Grau, I'm sorry, I always call her Barb. Where you at, Barb? I know you were in here. Okay, she's on the front. Miss Barb, and of course myself. So I want to thank each one of them for coming and representing their particular groups for us to come up with this agreement. And I'll just close with this, and then I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Poffenberger. So despite our different missions or responsibilities in which our organizations are tasked with, in my opinion, this agreement gives us a mechanism to sit at the same table and continue dialogue in how we can work together to save the lives of healthy and treatable companion animals. So we wanted to bring this forward. I know Dr. Poffenberger would like to speak with you specifically, and I'll turn it over to her now.
Yeah, I do think and agree that the Accord was kind of a major accomplishment as far as outlining cooperation. The Humane Society of Beaufort County has a long-standing commitment to working with our local shelter. This commitment goes back to the early days of the organization and the county shelter. We feel that the continued cooperation benefits both the Humane Society and the shelter staff, as well as the citizens and animals of our community, much more so than either a duplication or a separation of our efforts. Volunteers have assisted in the shelter going back to the original shelter out by the airport. After appearing before the commissioners in the 1980s, the Humane Society and county committed to allow a cooperative effort to help the homeless animals. This allowed the shelter employees to get additional assistance from the society, whether it be in the form of volunteer assistance, supplies, or equipment that wasn't included in the budget. When the new shelter was built, again, with the blessing of the county commissioners, the Humane Society was tasked with forming a volunteer program at the shelter. The volunteer program in 2017 logged over 1,400 hours spent by volunteers working in and on behalf of the shelter. The belief was that the volunteers could assist, with them assisting in the shelter, officers could be free to carry out tasks other than cleaning, laundry, etc. A large part of our mission has always been and remains to reduce the overpopulation problem by increasing public awareness and assisting with spaying and neutering of animals in our county. One of the most recent achievements was when the Humane Society began paying the balance of the cost of spays and neuters on animals adopted from the shelter, so that we could assure that each one was altered before it left the shelter. This alone is at an expense of approximately $30,000 to the Humane Society annually, and this directly benefits the citizens of the county. Since many of the animals coming into the shelter come in from repeat customers or repeat offenders, more needs to be done to promote the spaying and neutering of the animals producing the litters that end up in the shelter. Promotion of spay-neuter programs would be best accomplished by a cooperative effort between local groups and the shelter. When Mr. Hedgepath began efforts to kind of reorganize some of the shelter practices, he commented that what we needed was a large spay-neuter clinic to solve the overpopulation in our shelter and in our county. He further stated that we have a society problem that results in pressure on all those involved in helping the animals. And, you know, we all feel like we need to do as much as we can to save as many of the animals as possible. Obviously, there are many different ideas on how best save the unwanted animals. Reaching this accord lays out a program or a mechanism for us to reach cooperative efforts. We feel that it is essential to make it as easy as possible for other organizations to be able to rescue animals from our shelter. While encouraging local adoptions is important, recent history shows that there are simply not enough homes to rescue all the animals from our shelter. So we must streamline the paperwork and be able to allow other organizations to help us out with rescuing these animals. With so many animals needing to be rescued, we all are going to have to work together. Recognizing the changes made in the last year, we appreciate the full staffing of the shelter and the additional training that has been provided to the officers. You know, this has resulted in, I think, a better ability of them, to serve the public. The newly formed advisory committee has also provided one avenue for organizations and individuals to present their concerns and comments. Allowing for open communication encourages concerned individuals to bring their questions, comments, and suggestions before a group that can discuss viable solutions. On behalf of the Humane Society, the board would simply like to remind the county that we have a dedicated volunteer base who are ready, willing, and able to contribute to the welfare of the county's homeless animals. We work cooperatively with a number of other rescue and animal welfare organizations. We would like to continue in a significant way to contribute to the shelter, as we are as concerned for its future as we ever have been. The shelter and the Humane Society both serve the citizens of Beaufort County. We respectfully ask that the actions of the shelter reflect the concerns of the public. Thank you for your concern and for your commitment.
Thank you.
Any questions for me?
Any questions? Any questions? Any discussion? We're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Doug Mercer?
What hell?
Commissioners?
Okay.
Thank you for giving me a chance to present tonight. In the October meeting of our Oversight Committee, North State Medical Transport provided us with a packet, an application packet, of which myself and Director Hedgepath reviewed, and we found it to be complete, and it was also read and reviewed by the Oversight Committee, and then it was voted on unanimously to allow North State Medical Transport to initiate a franchise operation here in Beaufort County. And this is for the first reading. It requires 2 readings before you guys confer it with a vote. You guys have any questions?
Any questions?
Yes. This is to provide transport services.
Yes, sir. Non-emergency transport, ALS, advanced life support, and basic life support transport between facilities and point to points, from home to nursing home to doctor's office visits and things such as that.
Do you think there's a need for more transport in Beaufort County?
It's a free enterprise system, Commissioner Richardson. Like I say, they're just another enterprise wanting to come in and operate in Beaufort County.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
how many of these services do we have in Beaufort County?
This will make 6. We have 18 operating entities here in the Beaufort County EMS system, which includes the Sheriff's Office Communications Division. We have 5 operating non-emergency transport services now, and this addition will be a 6th transport service for the county EMS system.
I understand that it's a free enterprise, but you can employ people where somebody's going to go out of business.
That's their problem.
I understand, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, it's remarkable and unique, and he could be one of the few, if not the only, but one of the part owners of this venture is a Beaufort County resident who's lived here his whole life, Richard Harden, and this is good. It might be that he does well here and makes a good bit of money and helps people of Beaufort County immeasurably.
Thank you. Anyone else?
You said it met all the prerequisitions to be moved forward.
Yes, sir. We reviewed his application packet, and we found it to be complete. And he attended the oversight meeting and answered and fielded any questions that we fielded for him.
Move it forward, as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
So he is not emergency complete, right?
Yes, sir. He will be a non-emergency ALS BLS transport service, but he'll also be able to augment the 911 system in dire need.
Good. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you very much.
We'll move into public comments. Mary Lynch.
Bellsy face.
And we had asked that we be put, that I go first, and then we've got three others in the party.
There's a section that they're going to be up there. They're going to be here.
So just don't go down.
Just tell them to hold it on there.
This is. So go and get them up.
Just explain it. All I was.
So I need to get a row. Can I move? So do I get a row? Okay, who do I go to?
You're late.
This one time I
A
got
separate item in the agenda
So does she come
for
with
you and the ones that you want speaking with you.
Yeah. We'd like you, if you can, is to come on up now.
3 minutes.
That's fine. Yeah. Mary Lynch.
Call the name. What you call it? What's the name of it?
Mary Lynch.
When I talked with Marlene on the telephone, we set up a separate item on the agenda, which is going to be later for her and the people she had speaking with us. We have a separate group that wanted to speak during the 3-minute public comment. So that's what we're trying to ask, if you want to speak now or you want to speak later.
She's later.
Later.
I would like to speak second after Marlene.
I'd go to the next.
And I guess she's part of the same group. Ms. Norton, she's part of the same. Allie. Okay, so you want to move down? Okay. Okay, and one group. Okay.
One caveat. You need to speak before you vote on closure on bids.
Okay. Don Crystal. How you doing?
Good evening. My name is John Crystal. I'm the Democratic Precinct Chair for North Creek, the precinct in which all this rigmarole about the Pamlico Beach site is about. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time here. I have 6 questions. I'd like anybody up here to answer any of them in the briefest possible fashion. Exactly when was the issue with the Pamlico Beach site brought to the attention of the commissioners and/or county manager? Is there a month, a year? Can anybody answer that question?
It's public comments right now. Right?
Yeah.
Questions come when Marlene in the next section. This is just strictly.
Okay.
I would suggest you go ahead and read the 6 questions
Okay.
while you're there.
That's fine.
Okay. So that's the first question. The second is, who drew up the current plan of action? 3, was there more than one counteroffer given to the present owners of the property? If so, how many counteroffers? How many times did it go back and forth? 6, what input opportunities from the citizens of the affected area were offered before the current plan was being formulated and publicly released? 7, is there a sunshine law in North Carolina? Closing. There are over 1,300 registered voters in the North Creek precinct, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. So this is not a political party thing. This is bipartisan. Making North Creek one of the top 2 unincorporated precincts in the county in the number of registered voters. Majority of those people which will be negatively affected by the current proposed plan to close the Pamlico Beach site. In addition, large numbers of those people pay a higher tax rate because of the waterfront property. And we all know that what the beach area was like before the convenience center was constructed in 2004, and how much the property values have increased since then. Does the county really want property values to fall, which is a real possibility with the current plan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Anderson.
Good evening, Commissioners and residents of Beaufort County. My name is Johnny Anderson. I'm here to speak on behalf of my nephew, Corey Anderson, and our family. Proverbs 31, verse 8 says to speak up for those who have no voice. As you all know by now, Corey has no voice, so I'm here speaking for him. This is what I'm doing tonight, as I've done before, and this is what I'm going to continue to do until we get some kind of resolution, till something happens to take care of the issue that caused Corey to lose his life. Tonight, along with my family, I'd like to ask you, the board, to put the notification of an inmate's emergency contacts policy back on the agenda for the next meeting in January of 2019. We, along with others in the county, have questions as to the policy presented last month by the Chief Deputy and the vote taken by the board. We would ask if you would ask the Sheriff, the Chief Deputy, or Lieutenant Brian to come before the board and the citizens of Beaufort County in the January meeting and just explain the notification policy as to how it's to be implemented, as to who will be assigned to make the notification to the inmates, emergency contacts, where the policy will be placed. Will it be placed in the jail medical plan? We'd also like to ask each member of the board, if you would, to explain your vote, why the vote didn't pass, or your vote for the policy in the November meeting, and your reason for doing so. This is a public policy that not only could but will affect at some point every family in Beaufort County. No family is immune. This is a policy that everybody should be made aware of. The ins and outs, anything to do with that policy, every family has a right to know. Again, in closing, if this had been your loved one, just like I asked you the last time I was here at this meeting, if this had been your son, your grandson, your nephew, would this be all right with you? As I watched them be sworn in tonight, they had their kids with them, they had their family with them. Suppose it had been one of those family members. Do you think they would have just turned their back and walked away to what's happened with Corey? I can tell you right now, there's not a one of you, I don't believe. If you would, you can raise your hand right now and say that, yeah, you'd walk away and it would be okay for what had happened to Corey to happen to your family member. Anybody want to raise your hand? I didn't think so. If it had been your son or your grandson or your daughter that suffered and died like Corey, you would be just as passionate tonight, the nights before, and the nights in the future, until, like I said, there's some kind of resolve to this issue. There has to be accountability. There has to be change. What happened to Corey was wrong on many levels. There has to be an assurance. There should be an assurance to the families of Beaufort County that this is not going to happen to one of their loved ones. As I close, I just simply ask you again that this policy for the notification of emergency contacts of an inmate be put back on the agenda for the meeting in January. Thank you for your time, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, sir.
Need a motion for approval for the items of consent.
So moved.
Second. I would like to pull one of those items from the consent agenda.
Okay.
Item number, let me find the consent agenda, 4, contract approval, commissary services, Chief Deputy Charlie Rose. That's for the jail. Yes.
Okay.
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed?
I'm not voting for it because I really didn't have anything to do with it. Okay.
Okay.
So you're going to make that item 21?
You will move forward down to item 21 on the revised agenda.
Not going to vote for anything else.
Okay, items for discussion.
We'll next time.
Where did you put
21.
item number 4?
21.
Mr. Chairman?
21.
21.
Yes, sir. Items for discussion. It's now time for the Pamlico Beach wayside closure.
Good evening, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marlene Young, and I live in Pamlico Beach. My husband and I have owned our house there since 1991, and we moved here full-time in 2004. The purpose for my being here before you tonight is to make sure the convenience site, more commonly and lovingly known as the dump in Pamlico Beach, remains open. Residents of Pamlico Beach found out about the plans to close the dump from the newspaper. We woke up one morning. This is what we saw. Nobody said a word to us, took us into consideration. Nothing. The dump is dumped. That's not right. You didn't talk to us. In addition to this paper, I looked at the videotape of your last meeting here about the contract, about engineering contract or whatever it is that's got to be done to the dump. It sounded like you just, okay, this is a big trash can, we got to do something with it. That's not right. There's a lot of discussion in the government today about transparency. There was absolutely no transparency for us when this happened. Can we assume that other things that go on in this room that affect all of us, we won't have any kind of a say in them? Let's hope not. We pay our property taxes, and we expect you to have our best interest in mind. We are a concentrated community in Pamlico Beach, not just 10 or 15 houses. We have grown since the county saw a need for this convenient site to be built over 40 years ago. It's extremely convenient for the hundreds of residents and taxpayers that use it. Employees are helpful and friendly. We see no need to shut it down and make us drive extra miles to another site that you're planning to spend thousands of dollars on when we have a site right where we are that is more than sufficient for the needs. We have people from different areas that come to our dump. It's convenient. We can dump what we need to in accordance to regulations. Ransomville is probably, you can't even hardly get up to put your trash in the dump. You have to walk up steps to get to it. Feel sorry for the handicapped people that have to do that. The site is an asset to our community, helping to keep our roads and surrounding areas neat and clean. From the small families, elderly residents, to the million-dollar homeowners, this site is a positive to our property values. We are asking you to leave our convenient site as it is. The farther we have to transport trash, the more of it that ends up along the side of the road. We are aware of the sale of the property on which our dump is situated and that Beaufort County refused to buy it at the price that was offered to them. Also, the former owners leased this land to the county for no cost for many years, but the lease was allowed to lapse. We have another speaker that's going to talk a little bit more about that. We have a community meeting set up December the 11th at 5:30 at our fire department. We don't want the dump closed. We're going to fight this. County Manager Allagood and Commissioner Waters have already agreed to come to this meeting, and we would like for all of you to come as well. Why build a better mousetrap if you've already got one that works? Now, Mary Lynch and Al Norton are going to be speaking as soon as I get down from here, and they have their own special things that they want to say. And John, I don't know whether you want to speak again or not. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for listening, and we hope at least you will put off the number 8 thing on your agenda to award monies for the dump to be demolished. Thank you.
You also have a petition.
I'm sorry. I have a petition, 421 names. Do I hand this to somebody? And we have a letter from one of the older residents of Pamlico Beach about how this would inconvenience her and be a burden on her to have to drive the extra mileage. Mary?
Thank you.
First of all, good evening, everyone. I'm not a speaker, only on the phone. I'm a truck owner, okay? My name is Mary Lynch. However, I do live in Pantego. I have family members and friends in Pamlico Beach. My husband, Isaac, like I said, I'm not a speaker. My husband, Isaac Johnson, and myself have talked to the owner of the property that has Pamlico Beach. We have decided that we're going to buy the property at 109 Old Pamlico Beach Road. It's occupied right now by the dump, and which the community dump. Our proposal is simple. I will lease the 2 acres back to Beaufort County for 99 years. However, after 25 years, I will put it in my will. It will be signed over automatically to Beaufort County. Let's see here. All right. The price for the usage of the dump will be negotiated monthly, quarterly, or yearly. It will be no more than what you're paying right now for 5 points. That's up on 32. I'm hoping you accept. For to abandon it will cost thousands of dollars, not to mention the high risk environmental cleanup from spills over 50 years from compactors, bins, etc. The cost for environmental cleanup is astronomical, and you don't want the EPA coming in anyway. Meaning every inch of contaminated waste that's been there for 50 years would have to be cleaned up. But If you lease it, it'll be a win-win situation for the residents of Pamlico Beach, for my family members, and for the council members. Okay? That's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I have to stay here. I'm sorry. I got to go to Oklahoma City. I'm going to be the Wednesday. What are you going to do tomorrow? No, I think I'm bringing a truck down to pick me up. Okay. I apologize, but I do have to go. But if y'all do accept, you can let me know. Come on in. Okay.
We'll just get on the CD.
My name is Al Norton. I have a residence in Wilmington, North Carolina, and my favorite cottage at Pamlico Beach. My cottage is actually the nearest one to the dump. And so in brief, I believe I can say to you that trash availability was one of the reasons for my purchase. And the facility that we now have covers all of the waste types, which I've listed here through kitchen waste and metal appliances. The faculty is well run, and I've not heard any negatives on its performance. As a comment, I believe that two of you were on the board when I made a presentation that the group in Pamlico Beach requested. At that time, there were 300 signatures to retain the local facility. You were in the preliminary staging plan to consider closure, and I recommended that you have NC State industrial engineers and consultants in Greenville do a countywide location study. If your objective is to reduce the total number of trash sites, clearly optimization and location of those sites is important. As far as I was concerned, we were well received, and as far as I know, there was no activity on evaluation of the proposals or the studies. So I'm going to just take 1 minute. One can't do a complete study, but one can look narrowly at Pamlico and Ransonville on page 2. Between the two circles, there are 9 miles. Everything from Pamlico Beach East and West and others feeds through the Pamlico facility and would not count in an analytical analysis. The same is true at Ransonville. And the 37 miles from Ransonville to west of Bath really has no impact on the trade-off costs between Pamlico and Ransonville. In front of you, I have listed the consideration in a brief analysis. 18 miles from home and back for all of those who would have to travel. My understanding is there are 749 homes in the area, but I used the averages of the information we had of 300 Pamlico trash visits weekly, 200 to 250 in winter, 400 in summer. 51 weeks a year, I used 50. I considered the savings in cost from trash trucks, and I will move through it and say that one could evaluate this on several bases in terms of travel cost. If you use the IRS in county rates, it's 54 cents a mile, which is what the burden on residents would be. If you used only gas and maintenance, it would be 27 cents a mile, and I assigned $4 a mile to trucks. I got assigned $10, and it wouldn't make any difference in terms of cost of running the dump to speak of. In summary of my calculations, and I'll offer those to the group in detail if you want them, I'll pull them together. We now pay, all of us, $145 in trash tax. At 54 cents a mile, it would cost an additional $468 for 300 residents who currently use the dumps to travel to Ransonville. If you do it on 27 cents a mile, it would cost $221 a year, meaning that when you add the $145 of trash tax, depending on your assumptions, between $366 and $613 a year will be charged to each resident using the facility if they have to do it in Ransonville. In summary, then, there are, on a planning basis, on page 3, more than just property values to consider. There's development being enhanced, and I'm going to just mention one to you. There's another 10 or so. Infrastructure is key to our future, and most residents would choose the trash management facility in Pamlico Beach to other investments or operating funds that we're aware of. On page 4, I simply show you what you already know. The Corps of Engineers has the only navigable channel off of the inland waterway on North Creek. I'm sorry, I apologize, Wrights Creek. And you'll recognize in the upper right corner the new ramp and property that the board participated in buying at Mills Point. It's definitely a valuable purchase with definitely a valuable future. The deepest water for navigation with outside interests asking for opportunities to have a look at it. In summary, that's an excellent investment. But most of the people I have talked to, if they had to make a cost decision for what I believe to be $25,000 to $50,000 versus the amount paid by the county for this facility, they would take the trash facilities. So either ask for additional time or consideration to try to get this right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, my name's John Sager. I live in Pamlico Beach. Full disclosure, my wife works at the Pamlico Beach dump site. I was looking up, let me go to a couple of questions. Gentlemen, I understand you voted in a closed session, or this discussion was done in a closed session in October to close the Pamlico Beach dump site. You can correct me, but did any of you vote in favor of keeping it open? Raise your hand. Anybody dissent? Did anybody dissent and suggest we should keep it open? No? All right. I was looking at some numbers from the county.
Yes.
Go ahead.
We can't vote in closed session. We came out of closed session and voted on.
Oh, so then, did anybody vote to keep it open?
I don't remember what the vote was.
Did anybody dissent or argue to try to keep it open? I mean, since it was you guys, you should remember.
Sorry, can you repeat that? It was not a vote on whether to keep it open or close it. It was a.
So it was a discussion. You decided to close it. Nobody suggested anything about maybe the need or anything else. So, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I just want to get an idea what we're up against. Okay. And 0 for 7.
6.
6? Okay. But I take it that you didn't support keeping the dump site opened?
Well, I'm fresh here.
He was not.
Excuse me.
I'm going to be asking questions in a minute.
All right. I was looking at some numbers. I called a county employee here, and if I mispronounce any names along this, please forgive me. I'm not that good at names. Anita Radcliffe. She's in finance. I asked her what Pamlico Beach costs to keep open, what the county pays to keep that open. And roughly she said about $30, which is used to pay the salaries of the employees that work there.
$30,000.
I'm sorry. I'm nervous. I really am nervous. I'm sorry. About $30,000 for the salaries, and that's pretty close because that's about what I came up with. So the county's paying for the salaries of those people, and it's my understanding, but you can correct me. We've been told nobody's losing their jobs. Does anybody care to comment on that? Is that so? Can we get a comment on that?
Mr. Chairman, I think you should explain that this is a public comment session.
Right.
And
All right.
we can't answer a question.
Right. Oh, okay.
We're into the agenda.
All right, then I'll
We're
just...
into the agenda item?
Yeah, we're in discussion.
When did we do that?
I don't mean to jump a gun. It's my first time here, so if I'm blowing the protocol, please forgive me. I'll go along then and say that it's my understanding, and we've been led to believe, that nobody loses their job. So this $30,000 that would be saved is not going to be saved. Nobody's losing their job. Then we go for the other part of keeping Pamlico Beach open, the maintenance for gravel or some other things. And that's roughly $3,000 a year. So there's $30,000 we're not going to save. We're going to save $3,000 a year. And it's my understanding that you have an engineer's estimate for like $51,000 plus to revise the sites. That's about 17 years of keeping Pamlico Beach opened, and you get to save the $51,000. So I don't know whether you've looked at the numbers in Beaufort County. According to the demographics in the county, we've lost jobs year on year, from this year to last year. Kind of surprising with the economic growth we've seen elsewhere. The Pamlico Beach budget, as part of the budget for the trash, solid waste, the $3,000 a year represents 0.096% of that budget. Less than 0.1% of that budget. And for some reason, this is going to happen. This is going to be some big savings. The projected budget for solid waste for 18 was $240,836. The appropriated budget for 19, $3,433,868. That's an increase of $193,032, or almost a 6% increase in the solid waste budget. Now, I'm just not seeing it. That 0.1%, roughly $3,000 a year, is a tall order for cutting off this site. I don't know where you're coming from. I think, if I had to guess, nobody asked questions. Nobody pursued, what was going on. So I say we should keep the site. It's a good site. Nothing wrong with any of the other sites, but Pamlico Beach is a raised site. People don't have to, quote, go up steps to dump their trash. Why would we spend money in another site, 17 years worth of money? Why would we spend that money to improve another site so we could close Pamlico Beach? It's not in the future of it's not in the long-term future of Pamlico Beach, and I'm not sure putting 3.5 people out of a job, or 2.5 people out of a job, is really worth that. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hadn't really planned to say anything, but I do have one question I want to ask. My name is Kim Watson. My husband's family has had property at Pamlico Beach since the 1930s. I think what brought this decision to a head and what has created a frenzy of activity all of a sudden is the fact that someone failed to see that the lease had expired on the dump. The lease expired for 3 years before anybody took notice. And so when the family said, you buy that property now, you no longer have a lease, it suddenly created a burden for the county. On whose watch did a lease expire and not be noticed for 3 years? Can anybody answer that question? I mean, somebody's got caught with their pants down. I don't know any other way to say it. And you're supposed to be representing us when the lease was not renewed, and then the family comes up and says you had to buy it. This should have been solved 3 years ago when the lease was up for renewal. And that's what's disappointing to me. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Second last one.
John Crystal again. Mr. Chairman, you have a copy of
Yes.
my questions, and I will give this to Katie on the way out. I certainly hope, that these can be addressed. I don't know whether anybody at this time is ready to answer any of these questions in a succinct manner. Exactly when was the issue with the Pamlico Beach site brought up to the attention of the commissioners or county manager? I'm looking for a month, a year. So that's a no. Who drew up the current plan of action about closing the dump? And switching us to Ransomville. Certainly there's a person or a committee or the commissioners in whole. Somebody has to take responsibility for that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to make a comment?
It's up to you. If you'd like for us to address, we'd be glad to address any of the issues.
I'll let you. You'd like for the county manager to possibly go over a few comments?
Yeah, the question is, who drew up the current plan of action? If it's Mickey Mouse, it's Mickey Mouse.
But
I don't
I'd like to do just let him make an overview rather than. That may answer some of your questions as you go along.
Okay.
Well, I'm not really interested in an overview that ship has sailed. I just want to know who the person is that presented this to the board for action.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I for one, am really cold on this issue. I don't know anything about it. I would appreciate an overview, and I might have some questions myself.
Yeah. If you will, let Brian speak, please. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So as the board will recall, back in budget deliberations, the board talked about looking at the solid waste enterprise fund and looking at those convenience sites throughout the entire county to determine and do a study to determine what sites needed to be consolidated, if there were opportunities to consolidate, and if that was an opportunity to provide some efficiencies and decrease or at least cap the expenditures that you're making on the solid waste side. As you'll recall, solid waste is an enterprise fund. It is not a tax fund. It is not funded by general tax fund dollars. It is funded by the fee that's assessed for every property owner who has a house on it in Beaufort County. Those fees are used to maintain the convenience sites, to operate the convenience sites, and to pay the tipping fees throughout the entire county. So any trash that's picked up in the county is paid for in disposal by the county. So if you live in a city or if you contract with a service that picks up your trash, you're simply paying for them to pick the trash up, the labor to do that. The county, through that cost or through that fee that it assesses on the tax bill, pays the cost of that. Okay? So in looking at that during budget time, the board directed us to look at and to put together a study. We have engaged a firm, CDM Smith, to start that process. That process will start after the first of the year in looking at all those sites, looking at the ownership of those sites, the cost of those sites, the improvements to those sites, what would be needed, and then the mileage radius. We talked about a 10-mile radius on what would be an appropriate radius to put sites at and to look at. Obviously, this is all for the board to consider and determine if you want to stay that way or whether you want to do something different. I received a notice from Mr. Jeanette, who is a Timberlands manager, who is under contract with a family that owns the property. It's my understanding that there's several tracts of land in that part of the county that are owned by the family. It's a family trust, I think, now. And he inquired about. Actually, went around and around a little bit because they originally went to Republic to ask them about it. The assumption is correct in that, and back in 1983, when the property was under ownership by an industrial firm, the county had a contract with that firm to lease the site at no cost The county put the infrastructure in place. The only agreement in there was that if it came out within a certain amount of time, that the owners of the property, the industrial company, would pay the county back for those costs that they had incurred to put that site there. The lease was for 20 years. So that lease expired on 2003. Okay? The property was acquired by the Mills family in 2001. There's a memorandum of understanding, or there's a memorandum of the lease that's recorded in the register of deeds. So that lease agreement was known to the family when they purchased the property. So that occurred in 2001, and again, there was a 20-year lease with the original industrial firm that expired in 2003. Since 2003, the county has continued to use that site. There's been no conversation with anyone about that site. There's never been any issue about that site regarding the ownership or the use of that site until we received a letter from Mr. Jeanette. And essentially, Mr. Jeanette, there were several back and forths, but he wrote us a letter in September that said they had given us their offer or told us what they would accept for the property. As you will recall, they wanted $20,000 for the property. They said that the buyer would pay for all the surveying, the deed preparation, the closing cost. The county attorney would prepare all the documents and handle all the closing, and copies would be sent to them. It said if our terms are not accepted, then we require that the convenience site be removed no later than 30 November. The board was consulted about property negotiations, as you're aware, in a closed session in which you discussed property negotiations. At that time, the board decided not to proceed with those negotiations. And as such, Mr. Jeanette's letter saying that if you do not accept our terms, then you need to be off the property. We contacted Mr. Jeanette and said, we don't have the time to get off that property as quick as you'd like for us to do, because we, under the original lease that occurred back in 1983, have a responsibility to return that property to its original state, less the trees. So take the mound down, clear it up, take the fence down, and put it back to its natural state, less the trees. So we asked that be allowed to do by the end of the year. And that is where we came back at the last meeting with the engineering firm that gave us. We discussed that with Mr. Jeanette and said it's going to take us some time to get an engineering firm in there to look at it, to make sure it's done correctly, to make sure the environmental aspects are taken care of. So the board voted at the last meeting to do that, and that's where we stand today. I'd be glad to answer any other questions, Mr. Chairman.
I've got some questions. Since, again, I'm cold, I don't know anything. I'm no less than everybody in this room on this issue, I'm sure. What was the amount did Mr. Jeanette ask the county to pay for the property?
$20,000.
$20,000. How many acres is it?
It's between 1.8 and 2 acres.
1.8 and 2 acres?
Yes.
I guess my next question would be, has the county already made a decision to leave that site, a firm decision to leave that site? Since I did hear you say a study would be enjoined after the first of the year?
Yeah, the direction that staff was given was that the board did not accept the terms of the conditions of the offer. And so we were bound by the letter to move off that property. So we've started that process to come back to the board for their approval of those contracts.
And Mrs. Lynch, is she still here?
No, she had to leave.
Did she buy the property from Mr. Jeanette?
They're in process. They've accepted her offer.
Yes.
And are we just becoming aware of Mrs. Lynch's offer to the county tonight?
No, Ms. Lynch mentioned that she was having those conversations. Obviously, from the board's perspective and the discussion regarding that, it's not necessarily the cost of the property. It's the overall perspective of combining convenience sites and looking for economies of scale. As you can see on the map, there are 8 convenience sites on the north side of the river. There are 3 on the south side of the river. Obviously, there's a little more population center on the northern side, but there's an opportunity, if the board so chooses to do that, and that's where we've been directed to do that based on that study, to determine what efficiencies we could gain and what sites could be consolidated and closed so that you don't have to continue adding to the fee that's required to pay for solid waste.
There's also about 3 times more land on the north side of the river. Am I right, Hood? Pretty close?
There's more land.
That's about 3 times. It's a lot.
More people.
Yeah. So we're listening to people tonight. We've made a tentative decision prior to me becoming a commissioner on this board, but nothing is etched in stone at this point. We still have the study to seek economies of scale in terms of all the roll-off sites on the north and south side of the river, and see what we can do to be more efficient and provide a greater service to people of Beaufort County. That's what's coming next, right?
You know, I think we are bound by the family that has said you'll be off the property by the end of December.
True.
Unless you buy it.
And I get that.
Right.
I understand how real estate works. I mean, sometimes one party will become intractable, and then another party moves in, and then that intractable tension goes away, which could be the case in this situation. I'm hearing some things tonight, and of course, I'm sure this will come up again. Am I right?
It is on the agenda item for the board to consider if you want to move forward with that engineering, with the project to move forward with closing that site. The engineer, you have a recommendation from the engineer on the bid that came in on that.
Okay.
Later.
Is that going to be we're going to move for that tonight? We're going to move on that?
It's under your items for decision on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move later or move now? How's that going to work?
Well, I'm not done.
I know, but I still got the
Well,
floor.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Stan finishes.
Just I need that question answered. We're going to move now. We're going to move later on this. Is it going to happen tonight? It's going to happen tonight, or it can be tabled.
Well, I can't answer that. We'll get when we get to the
I'm
agenda.
just trying to get a consensus from the board.
We won't know till it comes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I had conversation with Marlene, I encouraged her to come and present their side and what their concerns were. So I would recommend that we have whatever discussion we need to have, and then we continue, Dan, with the engineering study, and that's when we can vote it up or down.
Have that discussion now, then, right? Yes.
Was there any?
And we got somebody up.
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Since you're asking for an overview, I've been a commissioner for 4 years, and the number one complaint that I've had in 4 years is on solid waste, and it's all about how they appear, the location, and the fact that there's potholes and all that kind of stuff. We have 11 convenience sites, and when you look at the location. When this came up, I asked our county manager if he would locate each one of them with a 10-mile radius. And for this meeting, I asked if he would show using, and some people call it the Sydney site, and some people call it Ransomville. So that's the center of that 10-mile. So you can see where the Pamlico Beach side fits in on that. I've actually driven from between both sites, and it's 8.6 miles from site to site, and it takes 10 minutes. I, as a commissioner, drive 10.6 miles, and I drive 13 minutes, and I've been doing that for 34 years when I bought my farm and I built my house. The whole idea of what we're trying to do the study on and what our goal is to consolidate and reduce the number of sites, make them more attractive, more appealing, handle, each one of them handle more different items so you don't have to go to different locations. I think a lot of people have voiced a concern to me about the Sydney site not having to roll up like you do at Pamlico Beach. And that's the plan, is to make that site that way. There is no way that we can continue to have 8 of these sites on the north side of the river and be able to maintain them and keep them up to par. I mean, it's just not there. Every time we have a budget, everybody says, cut, and this is what happens. I would like to see us continue to do our study, but I can tell you, when you look at the location of that and you look at a 10-mile radius, the site needs to be in Sydney and Ransomville. It's not about the $20,000. It's about the location. It's about the location. Mr. Chairman.
May I continue?
Well, you got the floor.
Okay. All right. Going back to this, if you notice, this is where the population is in this 10-mile circle, is here. And these are also the highest property values, here. Okay? Ransomville is a lot farther and harder to get to from here for most of these people. Now, you're talking about driving 12 miles or 10 miles or something to someplace. You have to come back. From my house and back to the trash dump and back is 6 miles. It's enough that people can take their golf carts and whatnot. To go to Ransomville from my house is 24 miles round trip. That's 18 miles longer once a week, 50 times a year at, what, $2.50 a gallon for 18 miles per gallon vehicles. Almost everybody would have to use their truck, especially if they're delivering more than just, a bag or two, which do a lot more than that. So this is not the center. Now, if you wanted to combine sites, that would be an alternative, and had we had a public input means before all this was decided for us, we might have suggested that there has been all kinds of logging up and down Pamlico Beach Road leading up here. All kinds. And that might be a perfect opportunity for somebody to sell off some land at a lot cheaper than 20,000 acres in order to permanently have a spot and then close Ransomville and build a nice site that serves the purpose of these two things. Now, you're going to spend $1 bazillion to clean this site up, and you're going to spend a lot of money to improve that site. This site takes way more trash than that site. And then you can put all that there. I don't think it's going to happen. Mr. Alligood and I had a conversation on the phone about that. I moved to Pamlico Beach in 2004, and people that lived there before me, and the woods were littered with trash off of Pamlico Beach. People weren't moving there. The economy was bad. The property taxes weren't appreciable. And in the 12, 14 years since then, the property values have soared. We considered a community on Pamlico Beach. Actually, we consider the Pamlico Beach dump our center of news. It's a community center. We don't have tennis courts and golf courses and softball fields and whatnot. But it honestly is a public center where discourse happens all day long, every day that it's open. It's us. Few people, and we don't get the newspaper delivered every day, and we don't have that communication. So we like to take advantage of the opportunities that we have. Besides, if you want the latest rumor about anything, you go to the dump. It is, in fact, an ex facto community center for the residents of Pamlico Beach. So
it's got to be a first. That's cool.
All right. Thank you.
And I will remind everybody that there are 1,300 registered voters separated between Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. And I guarantee you they're all paying attention to this issue. And they're all on the same side. So, and they're like I say, not one person I know of from the affected area was consulted, asked for any kind of input whatsoever. And that's plain wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christina?
Christina.
Good evening, Commissioners. Let's see, I'm listed for audio-visual discussion. This is regarding the audio-visual in the renovation of the new Financial Services Center, and I apologize for not having additional information. There was supposed to be an additional presenter here this evening, but he unfortunately notified me that he would be unable to make it today, so I'm going to give you a brief overview. A few months previous, we had the discussion regarding the audiovisual system, and we gave an overall, we showed a plan as far as what we were looking to do. I believe most of you have probably walked through the building, so you now have a better image visually as far as how the Commissioner's room, the space will look. Included in the current construction contract was an allowance for $110,000 for audiovisual, so no additional funds are needed. At this point, we have the contractor A.R. Chesson has sent us a proposal. Again, still a design quote, but the number is less than the $110,000 allowance that's previously appropriated. But again, an overview of the audiovisual. The sound system in the Commissioner's room would be comprised of 12 gooseneck microphones. That would be 7 for the Board of Commissioners, 4 for the staff, and then 1 for the podium. There would be 10 ceiling speakers throughout the room in order for the audience to hear what's going on. Also, along those same lines, the microphones that would be provided for the commissioners would also include a speaker in the base so that commissioners at one end of the table would have amplification of a commissioner at the opposite end of the table to help you to hear each other. And then, of course, the processor and equipment racks and other associated components. The video system would be comprised of 5 LCD monitors. When you walk into the Commissioner's room, you can see the high outlets where the monitors would be mounted. That would allow one monitor would be positioned so that commissioners could see presentations. A second monitor would be positioned so that the staff table could see, and then there would be 3 monitors located so that the audience would be able to see. Because of the length of the room, you'll see the monitors about halfway back so that members of the audience sitting at the rear of the room would be able to see. Also included would be 5 cameras, camera pointed at the dais, the podium, the staff table, at the audience, and then also a document camera which would be mounted in the ceiling and would come straight down on the podium so that as people were given presentations, that information would be able to be on the monitors for the audience to view as well. Because of the cameras, what I would like to give a little bit additional information for that, and please bear with me as I just read this directly from the information that I was provided. It says an array of 4 cameras will be positioned so that they can see the dais, the podium, the clerk's table, and the audience respectively. 1 additional camera will be used to provide capturing documents at the presentation podium. Each camera will be recorded and streamed independently as needed, and it will also be possible to see a combined stream recording that has all sources combined into one feed. Any video sources presented as part of the proceedings would also be recorded, combined, and/or streamed. If a more polished video presentation of the proceedings is required, the recordings will be easily ported into a standard post-production and editing system, which is not included in this package, for editing, titling, or similar enhancements. Also included would be in the conference room, which commissioners would be using for your closed sessions, would be 1 LCD monitor, the ability to connect wirelessly to that monitor because staff will be using it. Excuse me. Also, the ability for people to sit in the conference room and still have the ability to see what is going on in the Board of Commissioners room. And then the final 2 items would be custom casework, which would be a custom podium, which would also be handicap accessible, and a custom staff table, where the casework would match the existing casework that's currently installed.
Question?
Yes. See, we have a large outlay here for a state-of-the-art system. Who do we use? We use a part-time person to run the equipment when necessary, or?
That has not been determined at this point. This is for the equipment purchase.
You're not going to handle that part, the other part?
As the Public Works Director, I would not handle the staffing of the operation of the equipment.
Just trying to get a handle on this expense. I just know, as a longtime commissioner, we've come a long ways since Lee Foreman spending like $4,000 for an audio system and the Republican Party spending all the money to have these meetings taped for almost a decade back in the 90s, maybe about 5-6 years. But we've come a long ways, and it's a lot of expense. I think we spend, $20,000 a year now for a pretty good product. So I sure hope this is going to be a fine product. I just wonder what it's going to cost if we got to start hiring people.
I may have missed it, Christine.
Yes, sir.
You said $110,000 was the budget for the equipment, and you said it was less than what the $110,000 was. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how much less it was?
Well, because the actual components have not been selected, it was around $100,000. So depending upon direction that I'm given this evening, if the board tells me that, yes, this is the direction we want to move forward with, then we will start the specific selection of the components.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
The board needs to decide what they really want. What we have now is adequate. I've seen the system that she described in use. It's the Pitt County system. If you go to the Pitt County Commissioners meeting, you will see almost identically what she described there. And it's very nice, but you need to ask the commissioners, we need to ask ourselves, how much of this goodness do we want? And how much of this can we afford? $110,000 is a lot of money to put into this kind of a system. I'm also very adverse to hiring another employee. So I think probably what we need to do is come back next month and talk about this thing some more to see where we want to go with it and what we really need and what we really want.
Brian,
Mr. Chairman, just the opportunity for, and we understand Commissioner Richardson's concern about hiring someone, and that would not be our intent. The system is designed in such a way that you could do a fixed screen where those fixed cameras could do a split screen. It would not be as polished as you have now, and you could just have static video that would be recorded and then put out. If the board so chose to make it more polished, the system allows those video feeds to come back in and be edited and things added to it the way you have the system now. The difference in the system you have now is you don't own the hardware. Here you'd own the hardware and you'd be paying someone to produce it for you and add the extra things. You can do that, or the system also allows you to step back from that, and instead of doing that, just put a static piece on there that shows the board, the podium, the staff, and the audience in a split screen, just a static. So there's multiple ways to do that. That was the reason it was discussed, so that the board would have the ability to say, we like this or we like this, and this is the way we want to do it. So that's why that was brought that way.
Any more questions? Anything else, Christine?
Just that, again, the way this system was designed was to be multifunctional. So specifics regarding the microphones, there are multiple ways that you can program the microphones to work. The cameras, there are multiple ways you can do it. You can have a live stream, or you could have post-production later. So the system was designed to be able to be customized however you chose at the time. Or if you decided to change your mind, you could go back and change that without having to change equipment.
If I understand it, the microphones would be such that all the microphones, if desired, could be on at one time, or you could press a button to get recognition, or you would press a button to speak. Would you describe some of that? I know I didn't do it exactly right.
There are multiple ways that the microphones could be programmed. It could be all of the mics could be hot at one time, and then you could push to mute. So if, for instance, if someone needed to clear their throat or pour a bottle of water or whisper or confer with someone beside them, they could hit mute so that that would not be amplified. You could also, if you wanted to be more intentional in your speaking, you could have it so that all of the microphones were muted, and then when each person wanted to speak, then you would push a button to speak. There's just different options like that. There's also an option where the base of the pedestal could light red or green, so that way commissioners would know specifically that their mic is hot and they would be able to speak. There are, and again, different options. There's also an option where you could actually do your votes via voting with your microphone. That's not something that is included in this document because based upon the number of commissioners being 7, we didn't feel that that was a good use of money. So there are, again, different options, just like purchasing a car, that there are different options that you can choose.
I got a question, Mr. Chair. Christine, is this something, with these features that you're talking about, is this something that we could take control of without having to hire a new employee?
That we could take control of.
I mean, when it's set up, it's set up. I mean, if we want to come back in at a later date and do some of the upgrades that you're talking about.
Yes, sir. I mean, again, it's a system that's adaptable and you're able to customize it.
Okay.
So, and it may be, I'm not so sure that we would have the exact expertise on the system to go in and do it, the staff ourselves. I mean, obviously we would have training on it, but if you wanted to totally change from going from push to talk,
bring in a vendor,
then you would just bring the vendor in who could come in and reprogram that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think the concern has been before, and I think I understand some of the comments. I think now is who's going to run the system regardless, and also that the county would own the hardware, own the equipment versus the gentleman that does it now owns the equipment. Is that correct?
Essentially, that's the difference. The county, the infrastructure would be in place. It would be permanently in place. And then you could set it up so that it would do a split screen where there weren't any changing between, where there wasn't any changing between cameras. So it would stay static on those different positions. And you could broadcast that. That would be a fairly simple process that staff probably would be able to do. Or if you wanted to, you could enhance that as you do now and have different, as the microphone or as the camera would zoom in on certain commissioners as they were speaking and then zoom back and go into different ones. You could continue to do that if you wanted to. That's why the system is designed so that you can either have that static feed or you can take those individual feeds and plug them back into an editing software, which will allow you to do all the things that are being done now. So it's simply a matter of what the board wants. Do you want to continue with a post-production piece that enhances that, or do you want to go back and have a standard kind of static display and be able to use those funds for something else?
But this evening, again, these funds have previously been appropriated. Again, you've seen the state of the building. We're close. We need to make a decision so that we can start installation. All of these things have lead times on them. The casework has to be manufactured. So, again, this is a system that can be used in multiple ways. But what I was hoping to receive tonight was direction either to proceed or specific direction with how to change what we are looking at, because again, the building is really close to moving in, and as we could see today, space is needed. So we would love to be in there.
We give it permission to proceed.
Second.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Well, yes. If you produce a static film and put it out for the public, they're not accustomed to that. It's going to be much less of a product than they're getting now.
Mr. Chairman. Christina, To what extent has Beaufort County bought and paid for this equipment?
There is a $110,000 allowance in our contract with A.R. Chesson, which is the general contractor for this building.
And has he built the spaces for all this equipment to go into?
Yes.
How much of that comprises the $110,000 allowance?
The equipment has not been purchased.
Okay, and that's just for the equipment?
Correct.
Okay. So, my understanding is and I know I'm a little slow here, but I'm just trying to catch up. But $110,000 has been allowed. It's primarily for the hardware.
Yes.
The software is not part of this.
No, hardware and software.
It is software as well.
Yes.
The
not
ability,
an editing and not a programming software.
just the projection,
Yes.
putting in a pipe software. Okay. Okay. So we would that's part of it. Okay, I get that. Okay, that can be achieved in many different ways, though.
Yes.
So the editing has not been taken care of. The manpower to create a nice product has not been factored in. So we're kind of at the point now. It looks like a grand exercise, and it might have been a good idea at the time, but we have the opportunity to rethink this and decide whether we want to spend $110,000 to put a good man out of work who gives us a fine product now. At, I believe, around $20,000 a year. I mean, I haven't been on this board in a long time, but I think I'm pretty close. Am I close? Can anybody give me an amen on that? Where are we? How much does it cost to videotape in its entirety these meetings?
It costs you $798 per meeting for this.
$798, and we have a number of meetings a year. I'd estimate we probably have about 20 that are videotaped.
Now,
But, especially during budget.
you also have to remember that there is some equipment that needs to go in there.
Right.
Less that. You still got to have microphones. You still got to have projection. People would still need to be able to see the presentations like you on
Kind of like when you go to Buffalo Wild Wings, you can see it on the wall, that kind of thing. Well, I think there's something we can discuss and talk about, but the way I'm looking at it, we can go ahead and go with the wonderful hardware. Sounds like a great investment for the future, but you don't have the product you've got now, and you're going to have to spend money to get that. You're going to have to ask somebody to come in and use a system that they're not familiar with, and then they're still going to have to do the editing. If you've ever done any of these before, that's where a lot of the work is in the editing. So I think for my part, I'm going to have to vote that we don't proceed right now. We rethink this. I know it's you got to do something now, but I like what we've got now. I think if we go out on bids, we see what we can get, let them use whatever hardware we do put in, but we need to have a finished system, a system that we can be proud of, one that works well. Because if we get to the point that we decide later on down the road we need a finished system, next thing we're going to do is hire a full-time person to do it. And that's going to run you a whole lot more money than you want to bargain for when we can bring in a third-party guy that we can fire at any time and use him, either alone with his equipment or in conjunction with what equipment we do decide to put in this new
Mr. Chairman.
place.
Yes.
And with that, I'm done.
Let me ask Stan's question, I think maybe a different way, or say the same thing a different way. What would it cost for us to continue with the present system that we have, or a very similar system over there, producing the kind of a product that Randy is producing now? What would that cost? What are the implications of that?
I think what we would need to do is talk to Mr. Walker and see if there'd be any economy of scale cost savings with him using some of our equipment. And I would think there would be some cost savings, but they would not be as grand as you might hope. But the whole thing is he's used to providing the product. He's used to doing the editing. The editing is a big part of this.
Well, once again, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
As the managers pointed out, there's certain minimal things that you're going to need anyway, like some of the video stuff and some of the other things. Why don't we whittle down to a list of the minimum stuff that we would have to make the presentation and still produce the same product that we're producing now? you would have, all you would have with that would be an increase in capital cost, which my estimate would be maybe $30,000, and we would continue the way we're doing now.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, just to respond, Commissioner Richardson, I think what that would do is you would take the fixed cameras out, if that's what you're saying. I mean, either you use the system that's been proposed and have the fixed cameras there, and then negotiate with a third party the production piece, the finished production piece, or you take the camera system out and negotiate with a third party to do the cameras as well. You would still need to have the microphones and the screens and all that. So
yeah, I think we're all talking the same kind of a thing of basically how do you produce the same quality of product that we're producing now. I don't think fixed cameras are a good idea. People have been sitting at home watching this. If they're just sitting watching a fixed camera, that gets to be Dullsville.
It will not work.
So I think we need to get with our contractor that we're doing this with now and say, what do we need to do for you to continue to produce what you're producing and for us to get the hardware that we need to do what the staff is recommending. And if it means using some of our equipment, that's fine, however it works out. But I'm thinking right now it's costing us, you're right, it's staying around $20,000 a year to do this. So if we did it for $20,000 a year and all that we continued and all that we had was an additional capital cost one time of whatever.
And I think that's the direction we need to hear from this board.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're saying is you can, the system is set up, the system that's been proposed that was presented to you a couple months ago, that the engineer laid out and designed, would allow you to either do a static display or to feed that same feed to an editing software for someone to do post-production on it. It's set up that way. Now, the only difference is you can say, I don't want to do that. I'd rather do away with the cameras and let somebody else bring their own cameras in and do their own camera work and their post-production, which is essentially what you're doing right now. So what we need from this board is direction on how do we proceed with our contractor to say, put in the mics, put in the projection system, do not put in the cameras because we're going to do that with someone else and they're going to do post-production. Or do we tell the contractor, put in what you've proposed and then contract with the third party to do post-production using your cameras? Does that...
Yeah, and I think to do that, you're going to need to sit down with Randy, our present contractor, and see what his thoughts are, because his would probably be similar to any other contractor that did this.
I just think right now we need to, I mean, we do some production of videos, and a lot of what goes into the quality of the video is the planning before you ever get started. You almost storyboard it to a degree. I know that sounds a bit much, but I'm sure Randy has gone through and decided what angles work and how to move through these angles and where to put them in at the right time, and then edit towards that. And different people have different ways of doing it, but the human element is so important in producing a video. And a static video just will not provide a quality product where people will watch it. Then you're at the point, well, why do we even need it if you're not creating a quality product? My hope is that we renegotiate exactly what we need to the minimum or the maximum, whatever works best to achieve the best scale of savings in conjunction with the human element. And whether it be Randy or we go out on bids, I think with the setup we'll have on the new location, we should be able to get a cost savings on the human element. Okay? So if there's any silver lining to this, maybe we can get a cost savings on the human element, but let's do not hire someone within the county, another employee. Let's use a third-party outside source, and if we don't like the product, we can always fire them and seek someone else.
I got a question for Christina. The product that you presented to us today, the county will own that product.
Yes,
That's
sir.
a one-time expense for $100,000.
$110.
Well, this came in on the bid. She
Okay.
said it came in on the bid. Now, there's nothing wrong with Mr. Walker's work, but help me if we pay him $20,000 a year, and this machine lasts us 10 years, we have paid $200,000. Or if we have our own equipment that we have purchased for $100,000, that is ours, and if it lasts us 10 years, we'll be all right. Do you follow me?
Yes, sir, I do follow.
Okay, so when the vendor that you have talked to, what is the life expectancy? I know anything can happen, but is there any warranty with this machine?
There are standard warranties. I would dare to say it's not 10 years.
I understand.
Nowhere close to that.
It's
So
not a call.
I honestly, I'm not an expert on audio visual, so I'm not sure the life expectancy of the different components of the system. So I cannot speak to that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
I want to reiterate on Vice Chairman Langley's idea of moving forward, but I'd like to see, once we start in that direction, I'd like to see the staff get together and come up with a viable working plan that equals what we have now and present it at the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I can tell you what that is, Commissioner Brin. It is exactly what you're doing right now. I mean, we don't have the staff expertise to produce a video the way you're doing it now. We don't, and we would never attempt to do that. That is why the option was use a static display or take that feed that comes off this and contract with someone, as you are doing now, to take that to put that post-production together. So I can tell you the plan. That is our plan. We would either do it internally on a static mode, or we would seek outside contractors to do that post-production. That would be our plan.
One of the things that makes this a little bit complicated is when you start editing video, you get into buying computer programs to do that with. And I'm sure Walker's got his own computer program, so what if you have to buy another computer program? And these things can be somewhat expensive. So that's why I think the board, my opinion is the board needs to give you parameters, and then you need to come back and tell us. Number one, we don't want to hire a permanent full-time employee. Number two, we don't want a static video program. And with that, we send y'all back and say, come back to us and tell us what you recommend and what this is going to cost, and you confer with Mr. Walker while you're doing that, because he happens to be the present man on the scene. He looks like he might live another 10 years, so I don't think you got a bad deal.
I have to agree with you
in doing that.
Can I mention one thing? And Randy, since you're here, you've already been mentioned. You can jump in at any time. Part of the savings on the editing is directing the camera as you know to go. So therefore, you have the footage you want rather than having to sift through a lot of extraneous footage and then do the editing. Am I right, Randy? It's almost like you're doing the editing as you're using the cameras to a degree.
Would you like for me to add
No, Stan can't do that.
No, he was.
He cannot do that.
No.
Okay.
I think we just give the parameters to the staff and let the staff go, and we've all agreed on two big parameters.
Let me ask
Number
this.
one, we're not hiring an full-time employee. Number two,
I got one last question. Go ahead. Okay.
Number two, we don't want a static program. And I think when you look at those two things and those people sit down with whoever else they want to sit down with, I think they'll come back with what we need to do.
Christine,
Yes.
what do they use in Pitt County? I think that came up earlier. Is it static or?
I'm not sure about Pitt County. There's a different variety that different counties use. In
I think they've got the
municipalities.
same
Some have
system.
static, some have.
They can manipulate the system just like she described in Pitt County.
And again, this system can do both. It
That was
fits
my
those two components or the two parameters that you just stated. This system will allow both of those.
And my motion was to proceed with the plan.
Mr. Chairman, just one piece, and I need to confer with Christina on that. When we originally had this conversation with the engineer and the way they designed it, they took out some of the pan, zoom, tilt cameras because we had anticipated a static display. So what I've heard you say is you don't want to add an employee. We never had any intention of adding an employee, so you can take that off the table. We never had an intention of doing that. What we explained was if we were going to try to do it, it would be a static display. I've heard, I think the majority of the board say they don't want a static display. If that's correct, then I'm going to go on that assumption, but you may need to tell me that directly. What we may need to do, and Christina, we need to go back in and amend a couple of those cameras to put them back as pan, zoom, tilt cameras. Right. Then you can hire an outside person, whether it's Mr. Walker or whether it's some other person, to take that feed
and edit it,
run those cameras how they want to, exactly like it's being done now, except that it would be county-owned equipment and they would be using the feed and operating the cameras as compared to their own. That's the way it's set up right now with just a small adjustment. Or you could say to us, we don't want to buy any cameras. We want someone outside to bring their own cameras and do all of that. So that's where we need the direction from the board, is to say, put the system in so that someone can operate and use it and produce it, or just completely contract that out like you're doing now. Let them bring their own cameras and do the post-production. That's what we need to hear from you, because the other stuff is static anyway. You got to have the microphones, you got to have the video screens. All that's going to stay no matter what you do. Does that make that clear? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's option C. And it's that's a new wrinkle. Option C.
I think that I think the county ought to own its own equipment.
That's not right.
And bring someone in to operate it. And I think in 5 years that their equipment will be paid for.
But let me mention one thing in conjunction with what you're saying. What the manager is saying is the cameras may need to be different cameras that are the operator knows how to use and knows how to use them well, and he will be in control of those cameras, where they point, and that's option C. We would pay for less, and that would be his equipment. Am I right?
Yeah, well, I mean, two different things. The system right now would need, and I think it would still be within budget. I don't think the upgrade to the couple of pan, zoom, tilt would blow the budget. It would still be under budget. But they would simply be permanently mounted and controllable by the operator, whoever that you may choose to be, not a county employee, right, as I've heard very clearly. It would be someone that you contract with to operate those cameras and to get the feed and then to post-produce the feed. That's one option. Or you say, we don't want any cameras at all, and we want an outside contractor to bring their cameras and do the camera work and the post-production work. That's the way you're doing it right now. If you say, I want to do it exactly the way we're doing it right now, then tell us you want to do it the way you're doing now. We'll take out the cameras, and you can have someone come in and do the camera work, but you'll still have the microphones and the screens, because you have to have that anyway. So we need for you to tell us which way to go.
I would support doing what you just described. Let someone come in and do it. And here's why. For less than $20,000 a year, this guy is doing the work, doing the editing, and providing the equipment. There's no way, based on the numbers that we've been put on the table by staff, that we can come anywhere close to that.
Call the question.
And then there's the B, option B, where we buy the cameras. Option A is static. Option B is we buy the proper cameras, hopefully cameras that someone with the expertise that Randy Walker has could use. And the county would own all the equipment, again, as if it was option A, which would be the static unit. Yeah. Then we have option C, which is to just bring in all the equipment. So we've got to decide what to vote on, up or down. Is it A, B, or C?
We got a motion on the floor.
We got a motion on the floor.
Let's vote it up or down.
Well, you know, who you got a second?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion, and I'm willing to alter that if Commissioner Langley will change his motion. I like the idea of option B. We have talked about owning the equipment. We can alter that so that they can be zoomed in and whatever. Randy's smart enough, I know, that he can make that work. And we continue to use him. I do not like, and I will not vote on, somebody else bringing their equipment in there. We have designed and we put the bids out there, and I have no problems changing it from static into the cameras where they can be zoomed in and and make the show better, if that's what we're concerned about, somebody not watching the static stuff. So I would
I'll accept that.
I would suggest that we change that motion.
And I call the question.
Yeah, I have just one question. Can we hear from Randy? Can he? Well, this is a technical issue. Can he operate it, or somebody like him operate it?
Well, I think that that we need to direct staff to consult with Randy.
Yeah.
We don't need to hear from him. We just need to be sure he is heard.
And
So
put a
this is gonna be
bid out.
tentative, up or down, right?
Yeah, it's called a vote.
Okay. Contingent upon
We got it.
negotiating. Okay.
All those in favor?
All right, I'll vote for it.
All those opposed? Sorry about it, Christine.
May I ask for clarification? Perhaps I got lost in there.
I
Tentative vote, what, is there
proceed
something
and
to
just
come
change
back
the cameras.
next? So just change the cameras to pan tilt zoom.
Right.
Consult with Randy Walker to make sure that he is comfortable.
And consult with
With the type
anybody
of
else that can
camera.
give us a better price.
Is
Since they're trying to save money.
Well, he's our
Is
resident
there
guy now.
anything that
Call
I'm
him
supposed
now.
to bring back to the January meeting as an update or anything along those lines?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's gonna charge you.
I just.
Yeah, bring
It's in the
Just
budget.
trying to
bring what
clarify.
you find out.
I'm just,
If it's,
okay.
we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Still not
7 o'clock break.
Yes.
County.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much for listening. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Richardson, you want to talk about the flood matter?
Well, I'm going to bump this over to the manager and make this real quick with one question. So far as you know, we're still on schedule for these maps to be approved toward the for us to actually have the maps approved and be using them for FEMA flood during the latter part of 2019.
Commissioner Richard and I had a conversation today with Mr. Randy Munt, who is the gentleman with the floodplain, the North Carolina Floodplain Management. And he said that there was an additional change, but it's a change to the good. The last information we gave you was that they were anticipating it being effective December of 19, January of 2020, somewhere along those lines. What he said today, later this afternoon, was that was part of they thought they had to do a 90-day comment period. He said he clarified with FEMA they don't have to do a 90-day comment period, they have to do a 30-day comment period. So the revised preliminaries went out Friday. So they're on a 30-day review, so they will have comments back by the end of this year. That allows them to, he says, to have essentially an anticipated effective date of September, October. So you bumped up about 3 months from where you originally were. So
Great.
It's a little better, but not great still.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Brian, would you discuss Ford Worthy's little sliver of land that he...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This item is a request by Mr. Ford Worthy Jr. regarding North Carolina Department of Transportation right-of-way. You have a letter and a map from Mr. Worthy asking that the board consider asking the Department of Transportation to begin the disposal process. You'll see it's about 0.271 acres of right-of-way on Highway 92 coming into Bath. Mr. Worthy owns the property adjacent to it, and someone else owns the other property. It appears to us to be an old bridge approach, and there was there's state right-of-way on it. Now, there are two methods. Mr. Worthy has gone to the state and asked them to sell it to him. Quite honestly, DOT is working really hard right now on all the stuff they got going on, and a small piece of property in Beaufort County is not worth their time right now. So they've essentially said, we'll get to it when we get to it. And Mr. Worthy would like for that to be accelerated. And essentially DOT said, well, if you'll get the Board of Commissioners to put a little nudge, maybe we can do something. Essentially, the piece of property, if there is an easement on it, and it's simply an easement, then DOT can begin the process of abandoning that easement. And if they abandon the easement, then the property goes back to the original property owners from which it was taken. Now, if DOT owns it in fee simple, that easement, then DOT owns it, and they have to go through a disposal process. And that disposal process is that they talk to the adjacent property owners, and they're able to submit a sealed bid, and they look at them and see whoever has the highest, and they dispose of it that way. The question is, DOT doesn't know how they hold that easement. You would think it was fee simple because it is probably an old bridge approach, but I can tell you this, the bridge approaches on the new Neuse River Bridge were not fee simple. They were just easements. So what Mr. Worthy is asking and what we're requesting of you is to allow us to send a letter to DOT asking them to start the process of determining how is that right of way held? Is it fee simple or is it just a plain easement? And whichever way they determine, then start the process of disposing of that, either extinguishing the easement or disposing of the real property under fee simple in the manner in which they do that. Mr. Worthy just hasn't had any success with getting DOT to move forward on it, so he's asking for your assistance.
Approve, send the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Bobby Parker. Mr. Bobby
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm here. The agenda says, ask permission. I'm here to ask you to approve property tax settlement. It's one in Cypress Landing that we handled at the board, and it's a problem to settle because we got values on the paperwork. So, but I think we've worked with Scott Casey from the Revenue Department, Mr. Francisco. We've sat down and we've done a lot of work on this piece of property, and I came up with $31,750, and that was the lowest I would go. The gentleman wanted 22.5, but he came up to 30 and wanted to hold around 30, and I would just accept that. So I'm just asking you to approve it or deny it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is he willing to accept the 31?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
We talked to him Friday. He agreed to that.
All right, I can support it.
Any other discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Thank you, Mr. Parker. Mr. Jim Madison, is he still with us?
Yeah, he's still here.
Chair, Commissioner, how you doing? I'm going to start with talking about the WIC office, it's a nutritional office that we have. Traditionally, that's all that they've done is control the program, the WIC program. However, what I started doing was adding some programs because there's a couple of registered dietitians in there, and for public health, I wanted to address some things, and so I started medical nutrition therapy, diabetes prevention classes, diabetes self-management program, and then this person now is also running the lab for testing blood and stuff like that. So with those new responsibilities, I might add that medical nutrition therapy, diabetes prevention classes, and diabetes self-management are all revenue-generating services that we can provide now. So what that did was change the WIC program manager to a medical nutrition supervisor, a nutrition program director 1, when we sent the job description up to the state. So they came back saying, yes, that's what the job responsibility is, and they recommended the pay scale be what we have as grade 21, which we don't have presently in our pay scale. So I'm asking that that position be created, or that job level be created.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the recommendation.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this a new position at the health department?
It's new responsibilities for an old position.
Okay. So you're not going to hire any new people?
Not hiring anybody new, same person.
Yeah.
What is their salary now?
Well, I don't have it as 48,000 or something like somewhere.
48? What is their salary under the new position?
It would probably come with about a $2,000 raise.
Oh, okay.
All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Mr. Hedgepath.
Thank you, Commissioner Evans. I stand before you
in a request for funding to be approved. Let me start over here. Pinetown Volunteer Fire Department, which also services the Long Acre Fire District, rebuilt their station. In remodeling and rebuilding that station of the Long Acre Station, they now also need the paving done in front of that station. In the past, the state has taken care of funding for that. The state has funding set aside for those particular things you apply for. It used to be a direct thing from the department asking the state would go in and do it. They now do that through the county. So I've talked with engineers from North Carolina Department of Transportation as well as the Pinetown Fire Chief. He's made a formal request to us. We have made a formal request to State DOT for the funds to do that and approval for it. And we're waiting approval on that now. So essentially what we're asking, each one of these projects cannot exceed $25,000. We have an estimate from the state that this project should be $21,000 some odd dollars. And what we're asking is for approval if the state approves this money, so it would be an in-out, no expense to the county whatsoever. We're asking for approval that if they approve that, we can move forward with getting contractors, getting this done, and then resubmitting our paperwork or submitting our paperwork to the state for full reimbursement.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed?
One good
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lisa Lynn.
Discussion.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Write the check.
I asked Katie to put in your packages 2 slides on a HMGP Fund 407 hazard mitigation grant. I went to Dare County on Tuesday for a presentation, and that was when I found out this fund is available. It is specifically a result of Hurricane Florence funding. This fund is the first HMGP money that this county has had since I've been doing this since 2011. The unique thing about HMGP money is that it will help insured as well as uninsured. Traditionally, FMA money does not allow us to do any assistance for anyone who was not insured. This money, the slides pretty much explain it, but just to recap, if your home, if your property is owner occupied, when Florence made its visit to our county, and your home was substantially damaged, meaning more than 50% of its pre-disaster market value, and you have a letter of substantial damage from the governing inspector, if it's county, if it's a municipality, then we can submit, if the homeowner is interested in doing it, we as a county can submit those properties in this Fund 407. It is acquisition only. Those homeowners will be bought out and they will relocate out of the flood zone. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to help some of our citizens, our residents in this county who have not had that opportunity before. Because as I said, every program that I have had, Beaufort County has not had this opportunity, I don't believe, since Floyd. It may be one time since then, but I don't believe we've had it since Floyd. So what I'm here tonight asking for, I had a meeting today with, it has to come through the county. So I asked all our municipalities to give me a letter of substantial damaged properties. I talked to our county building inspector and got his list of substantial damaged properties. Because of the length of time, this is a very tight time frame. I had to go ahead and start doing some work before tonight in anticipation of your decision, because I have to have all this in by Friday. And it's a lot of work, but it can be done. And the municipalities are on board with it. They've also got properties that they're interested in submitting. So I put in my recommendation, I think, what did I put, 25 properties. we're not really exactly sure where that's going to pan out. We'll have to contact homeowners and see who's interested in it. This is just a letter of interest. This is just a letter that I will submit to NCEM at the state level, along with an application from each homeowner saying these are the people who are potentially interested. They are not bound by it if they change their mind, and that number can vary. This is just a letter of interest to them saying, yes, Beaufort County is interested in entertaining this grant.
So move.
Second.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Within this program, if I understand it correctly, the county would take title to these properties.
Not within, only the ones that are in the county. The ones that are in the municipalities would take title to them.
Then we've got the problem of keeping the property up or what to do with the property. And in the past, I've been on this board a long time, these things have always led to problems because you wind up buying somebody out and then the county is stuck with the property, and the property has a perpetual easement on it that it can never be built on again. And this is not a good idea, in my opinion. I don't intend to vote for it. I'll tell you another thing that's going on, because I do the work and I see it. Some of these properties that are rated as substantially damaged are not substantially damaged. And this becomes somewhat of a racket. And I've said before, these kinds of buyout programs, I don't support them because it's taking my money and buying somebody else's problem and bailing them out of what they got themselves into, and it's an awful lot like socialism. So I don't intend to vote for this. It's not a good deal for the county.
I will just add, if I could, since 2011, there have only been 2 properties that have been purchased by acquisition in Beaufort County. And both of those properties, the next door neighbor to that property is now maintaining the mowing of those yards.
Well, I don't have a problem if the municipalities want to do it and exclude the county, but and that gets to be a problem within itself. This is a bad program, and it's a bailout, and I don't like my money being used to bail somebody else out.
Commissioner Brown.
I have to agree with Commissioner Richardson on this. Also, we own the property and we have to maintain it because everybody next door is not going to maintain that property. And also, it takes it off the tax base. So I don't believe I can vote for it.
It makes it unusable and unbuildable forever.
Brian?
How many properties are we have the list that you put together outside of the municipal city?
Countywide, I have about 30 properties that have been.
And we know all 30 of them not going to be purchased. We already know that. That's not going to happen.
No, I suspect when it all pans out,
2
we'll
or
probably
3.
end up with maybe 10.
Yeah, 10.
And the average price of those properties that are potentially candidates for this are in the $25,000 to $35,000, $40,000 tax value range.
Okay. And are any of those properties, I know that the city of Washington, some of the ones that they use for green space and stuff like that, is any of these properties that in the county jurisdiction can be used for that? Or is in this?
They're scattered.
Okay.
They are scattered.
Is it possible that this fund got to come through the county, but we don't want to hurt the cities that want to take advantage of this either? Is that possible that
this money has to come through the county because it's HMGP money?
I still stay.
And on the partly to answer your question about green space, some of these lots that are scattered in the county can actually go back to their natural state. They don't have to be mowed and maintained.
Okay.
They can be returned, which is part of the idea of this program, is that some of these properties should never have been built on years ago to begin with.
Can't the cities do their own separate HMGP program?
The cities cannot, they can do their own FMA, but HMGP has to come through the county.
Mr. Alligood.
Just, Commissioner Richard, Lisa and I had this conversation. I expressed some of the same concerns you have, and that is that what we don't want to do is get into an issue where we're having to cut grass in the middle of municipalities. We've had that issue before where it becomes a buyout property, and then we have to maintain it in perpetuity. My understanding is through this program, the municipalities, the property would go to the municipalities, so it would be in their name. The only issue we would have is any property that's outside in the county that would go to the county. And it is a perpetual, or in perpetuity, you cannot build on it. You can use it for green space. You can allow it to return to natural state. Or in some of our instances, like Lisa mentioned, we have had neighbors who said, I like that as a buffer. I'll maintain it. I'll cut the grass on it. It provides a buffer for me and my neighbor or for me and something else. So overall, the program is a good program. I heard Commissioner Booth say we don't want to shortchange our municipalities. And I think there's a way to do that with us not being on the hook for the property, that it goes to the municipalities. And in previous, when I previously worked in a consulting role, municipalities can take advantage of that sometimes. They'll take two lots and combine them and make a small pocket park out of it. They'll do some things green space wise that they may be able to tie some trails together, those kind of things. So it is advantageous to municipalities, and we ought to be able to help them with that under those conditions that we've talked about.
In 2014, we mitigated through acquisition under FMA, but through acquisition, a house that was on Old 2nd Street in the city of Washington. And once that was torn down, and then we gave it back to the city, and they maintain. I think the neighbor actually used it.
My motion still stands.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed?
It failed.
Read forward.
Read forward.
It failed.
Christina?
Sorry, Commissioners, I have to have quite a few, so the next one, that's what I get for taking last month off. The first item is a little bit of what I would consider cleanup of the accounts. The Beaufort County Water Department, as you see in your agenda book, just as a reminder, during August and September of 2012, the Board of Commissioners instructed Beaufort County Water Department to run a special on sign-up fees. On September 28, 2012, Mr. Robert Whitley signed up for 32 new services for a total of $802.56 for the Cabo Estates Mobile Home Park, which is located at the intersection of Magnolia School Road and Turkey Trot number 1. You'll see in your agenda books an aerial map showing the location. Beaufort County water mains do not exist within the subdivision, and there are no existing dwellings. If you look in your agenda packet, you see the notice. I was not working with Beaufort County in 2012. Since that time, we've had 2 CFOs, 3 county managers. So we are trying to go back and, again, trying to clean up some open items. So that's why I bring that before you tonight.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Let me be sure of what we're talking about. Cabo Estates was a subdivision that was never built out.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the streets were never built. And so it really is not a subdivision. We're just giving me his money back.
Yes, sir. You'll see pictures where it shows there has been grading that has been done in that area. There are, I would consider probably gravel roads because there is electrical that has been installed there, but there are no water mains installed in that area.
All in favor? Raise your right hand. All opposed? Okay.
The next item is also dealing with the same sign-up notice that occurred in 2012. It's dealing with a trailer park owned by Mr. Robert Whitley, which is located off of the Swan Point, or located in the Swan Point area. You'll see I've given you a brief description. Again, Mr. Whitley signed up during the initial sign-up period for 95 taps in this particular area. To date, 29 services have been installed and an additional 14 services are to be installed by the end of the month. These would be services that are currently located adjacent to an existing Beaufort County water main. Beaufort County water mains do not exist along the Stokes Avenue, Bethel Avenue, Greenville Avenue, or Potts Avenue section of this mobile home park. When Mr. Whitley was notified that taps would not be installed along these streets, he asked if Beaufort County Water Department would take over his existing system. He currently provides customers via a private well and private distribution system. This matter has been discussed during the Water Committee meetings that we've held since 2017, and basically with input from the Department of Environmental Quality as well as McDavid Associates. And the Water Committee was not in favor of taking over the existing infrastructure or funding the installation of the new lines. During our last meeting, which occurred approximately 2 weeks ago, the Water Committee's decision at that time was to bring this item to the full board for discussion and decision so that staff would have direction to follow. What you'll see listed are some possible resolutions. Again, these are items that have been discussed during the Water Committee meetings, and these were just listed as a reference to the commissioners for discussion and to asking for direction and how to proceed.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
As a member of the Water Committee, I've looked at this thing pretty thoroughly, and I just believe that it would be a nightmare to take it over. So I will not be able to vote for it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
First, let me disclose, I do a lot of work for Robert Whitley, although I just voted against him a minute ago. I may not be doing any more work for him, but I'm somewhat sympathetic in this is a very complex issue. It involves, just so the public will know, is a private water system that's been there, if you will, forever, that Mr. Whitley operates to provide water to people that live within this mobile home park subdivision. And he thought that when he deposited his money, when we put the special on, that this would lock him into certain rights and privileges. Whether that's the case or not is immaterial. It did lock other people into certain rights and privileges, of which they got the advantage of that. And I've looked at the opportunities that are involved with this here, and I understand what Commissioner Brent has said very well, but I think the fact that we're picking up water customers from this system, which doesn't, as I understand it, meet the full letter of the law of the regulations insofar as the standards for water systems, I would really like to see some kind of a negotiated settlement come about, and I would talk about something that's a little bit different than what's in here. The county, and I spoke with the county engineer. We spoke at length about this, and we agreed on some things and we disagreed on some things. But in order for the county wants the system to meet the state standards and to be manageable. And to be low in maintenance, just like the rest of our water system, which is the only way that we can provide water at an economical price to anybody. And I would like to see something, I'll put this on the table as food for thought, along the lines of the county would pay for McDavid, who does our work in our system, to design the system that would meet the county's requirements. And in order to get the cost down on this, that Mr. Whitley would install, and I haven't talked to Mr. Whitley about this, so this is the first time he's hearing this, that Mr. Whitley would install the new water system, which he has the license to do and the capability of doing, which would be very economical when compared to getting a contractor in to do these things. He would purchase the materials and install the system, and that would be his contribution. The county would provide the meters and make the taps to the system for the units, for the living units that are there. Mr. Whitley would connect behind the meter, which he's supposed to do anyway, to the dwelling unit. And I would put that on the table as a possible solution to this. And I don't know whether Mr. Whitley would agree to this or not, but I don't want us to vote all of this stuff down tonight, slam the door, and which is going to cause some other problems. I'd rather make this proposal and let the board send the county engineer/manager back to Mr. Whitley to negotiate with him again to come to a settlement on this. This is one thing that is true. People can say what they have, you can believe it or not believe it. But over the years that I have been here, I have seen people get literally free water systems based on these same kind of tactics that were allowing at the time that Mr. Whitley made his deposit. He is just looking for the same kind of treatment that other citizens have gotten. And I think I admire the county engineer for taking the position that she's taking on this. It's been needed for a long time. But by the same token, we need to work our way out of this situation. So I would make that as a proposal for settlement of this. And I know there's a motion on the table, but is there a motion on the table?
Mm-hmm. No.
Okay. There's not? Didn't get a second. I would make this as a proposal, and that we go back and do some more negotiating with Mr. Whitley to get this thing resolved. Because we do pick up about 50 water customers.
Yeah. Second that. If you're moving. Is that a movement?
That was a motion.
Second.
You've got 4 options on there, right?
Yes, sir. I listed a possibility of 4 different options.
This would be a 5th option.
That would be a 5th.
But I think it's a more viable option than the options that are presented.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one question to Commissioner Richardson? Your motion would be that the county engage McDavid and Associates, our county engineers, our county contract engineers, to design the system, and then Mr. Whitley would pay for it, install it, and do all the installation throughout the entire system, and then turn it over to the county for the county to own and operate?
Yeah. Yes.
Is that a viable option with what we have in the system there? Can we hit all that? I guess the engineers here, our engineers here, if that puts him on the spot.
With the additional clarification. and McDavid and Associates provided a preliminary cost estimate. The construction cost was estimated at around $117,000, and then the total project cost, including engineering services, inspection services, legal, easement preparation, the total cost was around $150,000.
So from that perspective, Mr. Whitley's looking at substantial cost. There are some options, I think, that have been discussed that the way they were laid out was to say, if you give us the option to go back to Mr. Whitley and say these things are available and let him choose what is most economical for him to serve his residents.
I don't have a problem with sending you back with the whole package. I would just throw that in as option number 5 because it gives him an opportunity to save a good bit of money by putting the system in himself. Now, it would be inspected by McDavid. It would be to county standards and all, to state standards and all that stuff.
So what you're saying is add that as a number 5.
Add that as number, yes, sir.
Mr. Whitley determined which of those 4 or 5 he believes is the best for him.
Yeah, and none of them may satisfy him. As I say, I haven't spoken with him about this, but I would make that as number 5 option. I'd like to keep the door open on this. I don't want to slam the door.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Whitley would be willing to do that. I could certainly vote for the county taking it over. But I don't think that we as a county public works need to spend that kind of money. That's the way I feel about it.
Did he want to speak?
No, sir. I'm just looking for direction and how to proceed.
We have a motion on the floor in second, so.
To add that to the 5th.
To add that to the 5th and send them back to
the discussion.
Talk to Mr.
I got
Whitley.
a question. The numbers that the manager gave come to about $260,000 with the engineering fee and the design, and that would be passed on to Mr. Whitley.
No, the numbers I think come to like 170 at the top.
So how much was the design?
No, sir. It was 150 was the total project cost. Approximately 117 was the actual installation cost, and so that would leave a remaining 33,000 for engineering, inspection, legal, that type of thing.
To the county?
Yeah. Commissioner Richardson stated the engineering. I don't know that the inspection costs or the legal costs were clarified.
It would be that 33,000, the remainder. But the reason for doing it that way is it's to the county's advantage to design the system and take care of these legal things. That helps us, and then he would install the hardware at his expense. But I think they need to go back and do some, I think that's a possible solution.
One of our options back in to put a master meter, and you were going to pull the lines, and
He's the chairman, he can ask.
yeah.
What's needed.
Not that I'm a great speaker.
We just like to get it resolved.
Right. I would like to get it resolved too. I offered the committee to write a check for all the material while in the committee. I was willing to write a check. Some of the costs of this estimate, which I mentioned to Rich sitting beside of him, I thought were a little high. The $45,000 to repair the roads, which are sandy roads there, was a little bit high on that estimate. I told him I would fix the road. I had a box blade, and I'm fixing them all the time. I can do the work. I have a general contractor's license in water and sewer up to $500,000. I'm allowed to do things like that. I have done water lines. I provided the county with I used to pump 3 million gallons a month before the Beaufort County took over my other mobile home parks. 3 million gallons a month. This is a smaller park and not as much water. But I would be willing to put the system in. Currently, the system is in the specifications of the Department of Natural Resources. I asked Dyke Loop of Public Water to be here. If I say something wrong, I'm allowing him to stand up and tell me I'm not telling the truth. But it is in the, it's been an approved system for the last, since 1975. The design was approved in 1975. You don't have to have drawings. You do not have to have drawings to replace a line. It's maintenance. It's maintenance. You don't have to go in and do all the engineering. You just put the lines in.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we got a motion?
There is a motion.
There is a motion and a second.
Yeah, the motion is to add.
Come up with a fifth.
Yeah, to make this the fifth and send them back to negotiate and see if they
Any
can.
discussion? All in favor? All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask, was that, we're still looking for a resolution
Right.
on the issue. Was that for the fifth?
The fifth.
The fifth, to take the fifth off? So now you're back to the original four that are out there. Is that correct?
Let me go back and have a word on what you just voted on. What you voted was to actually turn down what I can think is Mr. Whitley's offer, that he's willing to put the lines in. It's to the city's advantage. He says that, and he's right, if it's called a repair, you do not need plans. But because we're operating a public system and because we want to make sure that system, when it's built, is built out to the public standards the same as the rest of our system, it is to our advantage to design the system. That benefits us. And if he's willing to put the system in, and I don't know whether he is or not until they finish talking, but if he is, you've solved your problem. You just voted not to solve your problem. And please reconsider this, and it's a negotiating tactic. It's nothing more than negotiating that you would send somebody back to do so. Why are you voting to not solve the problem?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, just real quick also, to clarify for the board, there is a little bit of difference in a state standard and a county standard. We have there are some county standards that we require of any system that goes in our system.
That's correct.
So when you say design it not to the state standard but to the county standard, that's what we would anticipate. Because typically what happens let me just give you an example, in a new subdivision, typically the way it happens for us is a developer will go in and build a new subdivision. They'll put in they'll bring us plans that are in conformance with the county standards and conformance with the state standards. And they'll put the system in at their cost, and then they'll turn around and give it to the county to operate and maintain. Mm-hmm. So from this perspective, what we would do, the county would be taking a portion of that cost in the engineering piece, and then Mr. Whitley, if he agreed with that, would be putting in the system and then essentially turning it over. So it's similar to what we would do in a new subdivision, except that in a new subdivision, current day, we wouldn't be paying the engineering cost.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the only difference in this.
Right, and we'd be picking up guaranteed customers as part of the trade-off on this. And the manager says there is a county system. Yes, the county does have requirements, but most of those requirements are not really substantial. It is, for instance, where you need a blow-off or to flush a line, they won't let you use a buried valve. I forget what it's called right now. The county will say you have to have a hydrant at the end of this line. You can't do this other thing, which the state permits. And there's several other things that get changed in there that minor. There's nothing substantial, but it's how we prefer to operate our system.
Right. It's like making sure that the system, the meters are in the front yard.
That's right, behind the right-of-way line.
Right, on the right-of-way. That's right.
That's right.
Certain things like that.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Option 5 solves all my problems. I can just let you know that if Mr. Whitley was able to do what the work and go by our design, then I'd be willing to vote positive for that.
The question and concern I have is what is the engineering cost? What is the county going to have to pay in order to resolve it?
$33,000, that difference. That's the estimate.
33?
Yeah. And we'd be picking up 50-something customers out of it.
Christine, how many additional customers? I'm not sure. How many additional new customers would you be picking up? Because you currently have those customers, right? Or you currently have the volume.
95 minus 29. 52.
52.
I mean, we can reconsider. I'm asking, since I voted for this, I'm asking the board to please reconsider because I don't think you really understood. And Christina, I'm gonna put you on the spot. You're not gonna like this.
I'm on the spot. That's
but,
good.
You know, are you willing to recommend that option 5 be considered and go back to Mr. Whitley in order to get this thing resolved? Because I think some of these guys will vote with you if you're willing to recommend that as a possible solution.
Gee, thanks.
Otherwise,
Well, my first thought is this. I stand before you each and every year with a budget, so just keep in mind that this $33,000 is not included in this year's current budget. So if we were to move forward with this, it would be coming back to you with a budget amendment requesting those additional funds. It's a matter of priorities as far as there are other capital needs in the Beaufort County water system that we're working to correct. But again, this is a special situation from 2012, which we all inherited. So I do believe there's some special consideration that may be allowed for that. But again, we've had this discussion in Water Committee meetings. I don't think Mr. Whitley has ever expressed an interest in contributing $117,000 to doing this.
Well, I don't think it'll cost him $117,000 to do this because he has to look at that. He may turn us down. He may turn this deal down. All I'm saying to you is please give him this opportunity to solve this problem, and if he doesn't resolve it, then, you can,
Well, through Sal.
yeah.
Yes.
Just for the board's perspective, the chief financial officer just made a quick calculation. With those additional customers you would pick up on a minimum bill, there'd be about $17,000 in revenue per year. So you'd return your costs.
So it'd take 2 years to take care of the engineering costs.
And that's a deal.
Are we saying that we've done this before, or we are agreeable to do it in the future for other people?
No, sir. I think what I'm hearing the board say is this is a one-time thing based on a program that was put in place that kind of got mucked up, and now we're trying to straighten that out.
That's right. This is the last, to my knowledge, of that program, where I think Ed Booth made the motion that we reduce rates from $500 to a few dollars in order to get more customers on the system.
But if you look at the motion that I put out there, it said there were people that was ready to tap on the water.
That's correct, and you're 100% right. But what the county did in administering this, and I know this to be the truth, and I'm willing to swear to it, is they went out and let people pay for advanced meters and other things, and it became a racket. Now, Whitley didn't do anything different than everybody else did, because he was told to come in, oh yeah, we'll take your money. But a lot of other people did the same thing. He just dragged around. He's slow. So we need to work our way out of the residual of this, and this is the last of it. And no, I wouldn't vote to do this for anybody else. I'm trying to work ourselves out of a big mistake in administering what started off to be a good program.
I guess my question is, we just got through agreeing to refund on the other one, and the amount of money that's been put up is $1,503. So we're talking about that versus $33,000 in engineering fees.
Well, we would keep his money, but we'd pay for the engineering fees in 2 years, but with water sales. So we would get our money back. Again, you're working yourself out of a bad situation. I would hate for the situation to get worse and become really entangled, because it would cost you more than this.
Could I ask the question?
Sure.
Question.
Yes.
Now that $33,000 engineering fee, we're gonna do that regardless. If Mr. Whitley went to spend $117,000, and I mean, if he says no, I'm not spending $117,000, the county is out of what? $33,000.
No, we're going to have a contract with him. I wouldn't begin to walk into this without him saying, you're going to do this and I'm going to do that. No, we did. This is not a good buddy handshake. That's what got us into this to begin with, was backdoor dealing.
Are you willing to spend $117,000? I can't do that.
He's willing to spend it. He may be willing to spend the equivalent, but you're just making an offer to him.
Yeah.
I will back up, and I will agree to do that if we have a contract that
absolutely
the owner is going to do.
Yeah,
do that.
we're going to do this, and you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
You can.
I'd like to
You can
make a motion.
cannot.
make an amendment to them.
No, he
can't.
can't. He was on the losing side. It has to be one of us four.
Okay.
Okay.
I make a motion.
You were on the losing side.
Okay.
You're on the losing side.
I'll make that.
There's new rules.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It's old rules. It's always been there.
All right. I'm getting acclimated.
I'll second. All right, any more discussion? Hopefully not. All in favor?
You can vote
All
against.
opposed? Stand opposed?
Four.
Oh, you can't vote.
Even Ed went with it. Ed's all the wisdom in it.
What was the vote on that, by the way?
It passed. It don't matter.
6-1. Okay. Who voted against it?
7-0.
7-0. 7-0. Oh, okay.
7-0.
Who was slow?
He couldn't get his hand up.
No, I was just wondering about that $117,000 that we putting on that, Mr. Whitley.
Ed did
Okay,
the
Christine.
Ed's straight on the back.
Next.
Okay, yes, next.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Mr. Whitley a question?
Absolutely.
Would you come to the stand? Mr. Whitley, what is your water pressure right now?
Anywhere between 30 and 40.
And Christina, what is our water pressure?
Anywhere between 30 and 65.
Depends on how close you get.
But it would not affect the county because I'm responsible for everything from the
Right.
meter to the mobile homes.
I'm just
If it
concerned
blows
about
down.
the residents there.
Right.
Um,
We had a similar, we've been through this on 9 other mobile home parks of mine. We had very little change of any problems whatsoever. County came in, did what they said they were going to do. In fact, they took over some of my lines. They're using my lines and was not put in by the county. They're my lines, and they seem to be operating properly 20 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Whitman.
Next item is dealing with the award of construction contracts for the demolition of the Pamlico Beach Convenience Site. On November 21st, 2018, Beaufort County issued a request for proposals which were prepared by CDM Smith to provide site work construction services. The scope of work included demolition of the solid waste site, Pamlico Beach. Work included the grading, seeding, clearing a stockpile area, and relocating soil to the Ransomville convenience site, removing and disposing of the structures, fencing, signage, and other work required to return the property to the condition requested by the property owners. Additional funding will be required as this was not included in the fiscal year 2019 budget. It was an unforeseen expenditure. Therefore, a budget amendment is provided which will provide the required funds. What you will find, it was not included in your agenda booklet, but it was included as a handout, which you should have found when you came in today, was an amendment, which included in that was a recommendation from CDM Smith, which also included a bid tabulation. As you can see, 4 bids were received last Friday, and CDM Smith makes the recommendation to award to Corbett Clearing and Demolition, which is a firm located out of Goldsboro. CDM Smith has contacted the references listed, and they've gotten good reviews. The firm is actually a timing issue that they have just completed a project and they are starting another large project at the end of the year. So due to an availability of crews and equipment is why they were able to come in with a successful bid.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. We've heard these people. Can I go, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay. We've heard these people. Excuse me, I have a cold, and it's just starting to kick in today. Mr. Chairman, we've heard these people speak tonight passionately about their community system. We have yet to get the study on the savings that will be enjoyed by the county by consolidating or seeking more efficient ways to handle our solid waste in these satellite sites. I think we're putting the cart before the horse. Once the property has been raised, we can't go back, can't put that genie back in the bottle. I think this is an issue that we need to re-examine and continue to look at, and unless we receive overwhelming data to suggest that we close this site and possibly other sites, we don't tear this site down. We just don't tear it up. Just leave it there for now, and let's move on. We need to go out and get another bid process. If it costs more, so be it. But once it's gone, it will be gone. I think there's some things we need to talk about. I think these people who enjoy this site, they would be amenable to restricted hours, which would be a savings on personnel. And as long as they can keep that convenience of having a convenient roll-off site as it is now, we need to consider that. It's a lot of folks living down there. It's in a way on the tip of a peninsula in Beaufort County that's hard to get to, and it's one of the most I hate to say secluded, but it is a part of Beaufort County that is far, far away from where we are now. And it is a one convenience we can offer for one of the greatest services we give our county citizens, which is solid waste. I mean, that is one of the things we have to do. There's so many things we do that we don't have to do. Solid waste we have to do. So I ask and plead that all of you reconsider moving now. We can always move later if we all decide that this is the way to go by majority. But let's not get the cart before the horse. Tear down what they have now, and then find out later, well, we could have done it differently. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would just like to say that looking to the future as we do the study, we're going to be closing other sites. And this is not a political thing. This is doing the right thing for the county. And we're going to reduce the number of sites. And it's all about that map up there right behind Christina. I mean, that's a 10-mile radius. And you can see that it's not that far for the people in Pamlico Beach. Once again, I emphasize, I drive. And I've been doing that for 34 years. And I take my trash to Beach Ridge, and then I go to Belhaven. I mean, I don't make a special trip to the site like somebody's referred to tonight. Did they go to the site and turn around and come back? I mean, when you leave in Pamlico Beach, you're going to go to Belhaven or you're going to go to Bass or someplace. All you do is, when you do that trip, is you take your trash with you. So I will not change my position because it's not going to be political to close down the other sites that we're going to be confronted with. This is all about making a better, solid waste, convenient sites. I mean, you know, this is the first one, and it happened to come before we had the study. But if you start talking about a 10-mile radius and drawing the circles, this site, it has nothing to do with the price. It has nothing to do with the convenience of somebody on a golf cart.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I just wanted to, you just forgot. That's all right. I just wanted to add to what Frankie was saying. We haven't harped enough on the modernization of the site at Ransomville. And because you're not going to have to climb up steps to throw stuff when this is over with. It's going to be a very modern site. And one of the things that I'm committed to is it's going to be a paved site. We're not driving through mud holes and rock holes and all that kind of stuff. You're gonna like the site that you're gonna get at Ransomville. The last thing that I will say at this is using your own numbers, and I went over them with the gentleman that presented them. You've got 300 customers average year-round at that site. Those 300 customers, if you use $150 in taxes a year, pay us $45,000. We're paying $30,000 a year for staff at the site. That only leaves $15,000 for tipping fee. Everybody else in the county is subsidizing your trash. I'm sorry that I can't vote with you on this, but those are just the financial and the business facts. And all of you leave down there. I travel to Pamlico Beach a lot, and all of you leave down there and you go the same way. You're within a couple of miles of that roll-off when you leave Pamlico Beach to go shopping, when you leave Pamlico Beach to go to Belhaven or Bath or wherever you go. So I don't think that it is that much of a hardship. And I'm sorry, I apologize, but I'm going to vote with the rest of these guys to modernize, give you a good modern site. And it may be less convenient than the one you have.
Commissioner Finley?
And I think, Brian, you also said that December 31st we need to be gone.
Legally, we have to.
They've asked us to be off the site.
Is there a motion?
I made the motion.
Yeah.
There's a second.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed?
6-1.
Can you please tell me what the bid was, the amount of the bid?
46,000.
$46,882.
Thank you.
And finally, my last item for this evening is also the award of a second construction contract. This is dealing with the High Sucat Water System Improvement Project. To refresh your memory, Beaufort County was awarded a grant by the Industrial Development Fund grant in the amount of $337,000. This is to extend an 8-inch water line along NC 92 to High Sucat Boats, which is a manufacturing facility located off of 92. McDavid and Associates issued bids for this project, issued requests for bids for this project. Bids were received on September 27th. The low bidder is Central Builders Incorporated out of Rocky Mount, North Carolina. The low bids exceeded the originally estimated available funds. Therefore, McDavid and Associates entered into a negotiation with Central Builders to do cost adjustment on that. Included in that, change the scope just a little bit, changing horizontal directional bore from using HDPE pipe to using fusible PVC pipe. We also deleted from the scope a meter which would be used solely to meter water used during an emergency or a fire situation. What you have attached is a recommendation from McDavid and Associates, which recommends awarding the contract to Central Builders in the amount of $258,000 and $258,059.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the contract with Central Builders.
Second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I may have missed it somewhere, but is any grant money in this?
It's all grant money.
It's all grant money?
Yes, sir.
Everybody's having.
I just missed it when you said it.
Yes, sir.
All in favor? Raise your right hand. All opposed?
Yep.
Well, all right. A new phase.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Several months ago, I came before the Commissioners and gave a presentation on House Bill 630 and Session Law 2017-41 that talks about new requirements for the Department of Social Services. The law requires each county to enter into an annual written agreement with the Department of Health and Human Services for all social services programs except Medicaid. Since that time, the Department of Health and Human Services has modified the agreement due to the feedback from the counties following the execution of the MOUs, DHHS's analysis of performance data, and impacts due to Hurricane Florence. The modifications include changes to several of the performance measures, changing them from static measures to growth measures. The modified MOU also provides clarification that no corrective action or fiscal penalties will be initiated based on the MOU for fiscal year 2018-19. The amended MOU was presented to the DSS Board on November 19th, and the Board voted to send the Memorandum of Understanding to the Board of Commissioners with a recommendation that it be approved. And also, another note, the amended MOU now only includes one signature for the county and one signature for the Department of Health and Human Services.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed?
Thank you.
Good night.
Commissioner Richardson.
What is the item?
Illegal voting.
The what?
Illegal voting. Subpoena.
Oh, yeah, the motion on illegal voting. Yes, yes. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. A minute, understanding illegal voting, yes. Page 260. I have a motion on illegal voting. And what it says is, be it resolved, the Beaufort County Board of County Commissioners supports efforts by the Wilmington Federal District Attorney, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to stop illegal voting. And the reason those agencies were mentioned in this is because those are the agencies that were issuing the subpoena for information having to do with illegal voting. That is a motion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed?
5-2.
Mr. Richardson.
Chairman, could
Yes.
I just ask a question? And I'm not sure the county attorney may want to. From that's a statement by the board. That doesn't impact. You're not asking us to take any specific direction relating to.
No, the board, it's a resolution the board supports. I think that it should be sent to the federal district attorney in Wilmington, though. I think he should know that the board supports efforts to stop it. We're not addressing the subpoena. We're just saying we support efforts to do this.
If the board so wishes us to do that,
Well, I move that be sent to the federal attorney in Wilmington.
Second.
Discussion.
U.S. attorney. U.S.
Can we
attorney.
do that? All in favor?
All in favor? Right. All opposed? We're presuming Langley votes against it.
Yeah, he did.
He did.
He's not here. He voted for it. I think that's a 6-1.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing whether it's 6-1 or 5-2.
Put him down for it.
It don't make no difference.
Put him in our ledger. Put him in our ledger.
I'll teach you believe it. That's right. I guess the next one is mine, Mr. Chairman, too.
2019 budget.
Budget. Well, Stan Etheridge has got some more specific information, and I think it might expedite things if we just went to Stan's and.
So we can X through yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stan.
Okay, Stan.
What I have is agenda title Fiscal Budgetary Evidence for FY 2017-2018, FY being fiscal year. All county commissioners, should they so desire, their unabridged version of all public money spent on behalf of their constituents will be supplied. Number one, a complete line item budget report in the most complete detail available, not the abridged version, for all public money spent in fiscal 2017-2018. Number two, a line item summary of all contracts let, to whom they were let, and all requisite bid information available. I'd also like to add all money spent, period, if that would be possible. Now, this can be supplied to the board either any way we want it. Any way each commissioner should prefer, or it can be provided digitally, which I would prefer, and probably be easier for the clerk to put together. But the reason I'm asking the board to do this is that we're all on the same page, that we all request this information, or if we don't request it, fine, but allow all of us that wish it to have it, because we are setting policy for this year. We are going to be performing oversight for this year, and the budget is only months away.
What's your motion?
And the motion would be that all county commissioners, should they so desire, the unabridged version of public money spent on behalf of their constituents will be provided. These two items, and I read them. Okay. I can read them again, but I think we have them there. Excuse me, this cold's really starting to kick in.
Is there a second?
Oh, a second. I second. I was thinking of a comment. When you get into discussion, I want to discuss.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I guess I've got questions. Stan, you're asking for fiscal year 17 and 18.
Right. So that year's already gone by. It's complete. We will know everything from that year. There's no need to talk about 2018, 2019.
Are you? I'm still confused.
Yeah.
We can provide you the granular detail that he's asking for 17, 18. It's going to take a little bit of work to get the program to kick that out. You can do it. You don't want it by paper. I can assure you don't want it by paper because it'd probably be 5,000 pages. But we can do that. I would say to you that a line item summary of all of our contracts is something that we don't currently have. We have a file, an electronic file where we keep all our contracts. We don't currently have them in a line item, in in a line item summary. Actually, the finance officer has asked the purchasing agents to start that process, to go back through and start that for this upcoming year starting January. But we're happy to give the board any financial information they want. It's going to take us a little bit to run the program to dump, because it's a voluminous document, and it would be most definitely something you would want to see electronically, not something on paper. But Anita and I have had that conversation. I mean, typically what we provide the board is the line item. What I think you're asking for is the detail below the line item that shows how much was spent out of each line item individually. And we can do that. It probably is going to take them running the report in small sections because it is so large. I think they tried it before and it crashed the system because there was so much. But I mean, we're certainly happy to do that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you.
I don't want to deny him from getting what he wants, but please don't send me all them pages. I'm just telling you now, I'm not going to sit down and read them 5,000 pages. I'm not going to do it. And I trust you and Anita's ability to handle these things. But if he want them, so be it. But God knows, don't send them, and please don't crash my system. And I know what your policy is. What one get, we all get. But I'm asking you this time, please don't send me that.
And don't send it to me either.
I think each commissioner should. In the past, each commissioner could request not to get stuff. There's no problem with that.
Let me suggest this, that maybe Stan should go over and sit down with somebody in the finance department and let them pull up some of this stuff, show him what it looks like, because he may not be asking for what he really wants.
And we're happy to do that.
I mean, I think, that will be a lot of help.
Is there something in between the big 5,000 page monstrosity and the thin line item?
I think so. It's either line item, so it says supplies and materials, this amount and this amount, or it says every expenditure we made against the supply and material line item, like this. That's the grand.
I think it's one or the other.
Is there a motion on the floor?
We'll let you see it. You can look at it and decide what you want.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Here's a motion and a second.
But you can always get a printout on a specific item.
That's right.
If you want it in there.
If you say, I want to see how much, example, the county manager's office spent on telephone, then we can drill that as deep as you want to go.
But my problem is, I'm not going to know where to look unless I got something to peruse through. Now, 5,000 pages. I mean, I can go through that. If it's digital.
I don't know how much it's going to be. We were just. I think I said it was very large, but we're happy to provide you. I mean, I think Commissioner Richardson's comment to come sit with one of our finance folks and so you can see it and say, yes, that's what I like, that's what I want. We'll be happy to get you
start there.
I would propose that we start with a line item budget. And then if you want to drill down deeper into any one line item, we can certainly do it.
Can you revise your motion? Let's start.
Sure. It may end up becoming that.
That's fine.
Okay.
Do we really need a motion? I mean, we're talking about financial information that you're free to have. I think it's better if you go and spend a little time and let them show you.
Yeah. Okay.
We good?
I was thinking it was going to be something a lot less than 5,000 pages.
But
I can. I'd be more than glad to.
I got one more request from you, Ms. Fine. When he do come by and sit down and look at it, please call me.
Well, and I deferred to Stan in his request, but to that end now, one of the big questions that I want to raise that's going to raise a lot of ire when I say it is, are we going to do another continuation budget? Or are we going to try to pick some departments to drill down on and do what Stan's talking about, more of a line item detailed thing as to where this money's going? Because I'm seeing departments that are spending the same money over and over again every year for something that they, is not a 1-year item. It's a 5-year or a 10-year item. And we need to pick a couple of departments, in my opinion, and this year, and we need to do more than a continuation budget for them. But mainly because there's so much stuff, I don't think you can do more than that at one time. And next year, we need to pick another 2 departments and do the same thing with them.
Again, we're happy to show you as much detail as you want, allow you to go into as much detail as you want, and I know we have this conversation back and forth all the time. For us, continuation means you're providing the same level of service you did last year. If you say to us, we don't want to provide that level of service, we'll make those cuts.
Yeah, but within that level of service, let me say this to you, and I'm not going to name the department sitting here right now, but there's some departments that are going through computers like they're candy. I'm seeing so many, we're abandoning computers. You got to surplus this, and saying they don't need all of those computers to begin with. I'm seeing things like that in there. So what I'm saying is, what is their computer budget and technology budget, and how do you surplus a computer? Is this just something that we bought that we decided we don't like? Or is this a computer that somebody locked up and we don't want to have somebody come and get it going again, so we're going to surplus it? I mean, I suspect there's some of that stuff going on out there.
We're happy for you to drill down, and we'll be glad to show you whatever, any of those. We do on our IT stuff. Our IT folks do look at that and make a recommendation, and most of those are end of life kind of stuff that we.
Yeah, but departments that I know of that have got 40 employees and they're turning in like 25 computers a year, I know better than that. I don't care how many IT departments go through it. I buy computers too.
Well, I don't know specifically what you're referring to. I'll be glad to look into that, because you're right. We shouldn't be.
Well, I'm not going to make.
You can do it here, but you can stand and stand and go.
No, well, here's what I would like to do.
Okay.
At the next meeting, I would like for us to decide 2 departments that we're going to do more than a continuation budget on this time. And that is sit down with the department heads and the people in that department. What are you doing? How many people are doing this? What are services you're providing? We're approving things that we've got services out there, and we don't know what those services are that we're providing. And I can think of 2 departments right now that are providing services that are not mandated by anybody, that we are expanding those departments and providing more and more programs every year. And you guys are clueless as to what's really going on.
If you can just give us the specifics, I mean, we'd love to.
Well, I would say at the next month's meeting that we sit down, because we're early enough into it, and decide which 2 departments that we're going to do more than a continuation budget on.
So we want to drop the line item for right now and just.
Let me since Hood piggybacked on me, or I'm piggybacking on Hood. Let me just say this: I've thought about it a little bit. I'd like to revise my request, and if anybody else wants it, fine. But my request would be fiscal year 2018, 2019. Just get me the budget, full budget, as what you gave the commissioners, and then I will use that to come to sit with you and drill down into one or the other or more. You don't need a motion.
So you're rescinding your motion?
Yeah. If we're going to go at it that direction, since I was thinking about a full year, but since we're not going to we're not going to get into all the specifics of the extra voluminous report, I would be more than happy to just go with last year and then work it as throughout the year, because we're going to, by the time we're in budget, we're going to be close to being done anyway. So that'll be fine.
Well, Anita was sending out something by email every quarter, and nobody read it, but she sent it out. I mean, I looked at it, but I didn't have time to put time into it. That was about, 30 or 40 computer pages?
Yes.
Probably, yes. That's rolled up a little bit. That's something.
So I will be getting that.
Yeah, you may want something like that.
Yeah.
You may already have it.
Any other discussion?
So why don't I just get last year's budget? You send me the report like you're sending everybody else, and we'll see. We'll just go from there. Okay. Right.
We gonna vote on this?
No, I don't think we.
And I want it. You can get it to me digitally.
All right,
good. Thank you.
Staff's going to provide him with what he wants.
14.
Mr. Alligood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is a request for the board to consider upgrading our telephone system controller. You've got a proposal from our current telephone system provider, Business Communication Systems, to upgrade our current ESI telephone system controller. That existing controller is about 14 years old. The upgrade of the controller and the associated upgrade of the network switches would allow us to provide IP telephone service in the downtown campus location, which includes the new Financial Services Center. What we've got to do is change out some switches to make them where they run power through the switch. So that way the phones are cheaper, so you don't have to run the phone through the light switch or through the receptacle, and even if power goes out, those phones still work. Because the system is backed up and generated, it'll be moved over to the Seaboard building. It also allows future expansions to several remote department locations to solve some telephone issues we had and reduce those costs. The upgrade controller would be in the server room. It's backed up and generated. You'll see in the agenda package, you have some notes from our IT provider that recommends the upgrade and a description of the system. There's an associated budget amendment to it that would fund it with no use of fund balance by realizing an increase in investment earnings to cover the cost. You see that broken down. The system currently, we have multiple ESI systems in the county. By upgrading this system that sits over in the water department and bringing it over to the Seaboard building and putting it in the IT room and having it backed up and generated would allow us to consolidate those and tie those systems together. It would also allow us to do things like when the sheriff's office, which is on a separate telephone system, if that ever dies, and eventually it will allow us to pick up their system, because we already have the narcotics system on our ESI system. So it would allow us to do that a lot cheaper. It would allow us to bring DSS in. It would allow us to eventually bring the health department in. So you'd have all the departments on one phone system operating in the best way it should be. So the cost on that is $85,000. We've looked at what it would cost to just go into the Financial Services Center and just put phones in there and just do that on a straight contract basis, and that runs anywhere from $367 a month to $331 a month. But that's a system that's hosted and not one that you control. And it's just, if you are a business and you're trying to minimize capital costs, that's probably the smart thing to do, because you may not be in business in 2 years. From the county's perspective, the way we look at it is we can afford capital costs because we're going to be here, and it's cheaper for us to pay the capital costs instead of just worrying about cash flow. And this allows us to combine systems, and it kind of future-proofs us as we look forward with other issues going on.
Commissioner Brand?
Happy to answer any questions.
Brian, is this an emergency item, or could it possibly be put off until we do budget?
Well, the issue with this is we've got to be able to deal with the phone system at the bank building, and what this does is it does that. Now, I mean, the other option to do that is to buy a completely separate system, like we did out at Animal Control, like you have over at Register of Deeds, like you have all the other ESI systems that are around. You could do a small system over there. But you can also do this and upgrade the entire system and tie them all together. So to us, it makes sense to do that so that you can handle future needs and deal with some of the off-site telephone issues we have, like elections, and they're on an old Nortel system that is costing us a ton of money that we could use some remotes. Emergency management has some issues and they're not tied into our system, and our telecommunications folks have said you can do that with remote IP sites off of this one. So from our perspective, we think it's an opportunity while we're dealing with the Financial Services Center to go ahead and get the system where it's ready to go for the future.
So you're telling me that takes in consideration the new bank building, the ESS, health department, and the sheriff's department?
No. The sheriff's office is a standalone system right now. But what this would do is it puts in the backbone for us that when that system eventually crashes, then we can just pick that system up by going in and adding phones and not having to buy a new system over there, because we've currently done that with part of their system. The narcotics system is already on ours. This simply gives us that capacity to bring in those other systems instead of them being segregated across the county. We're able now to tie those together, be able to share phone lines and do things like that.
You're essentially buying a server and a switch.
We are buying an upgraded controller, which is a server, and we're upgrading some switches so that those switches can push power over them. Yes, sir.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Discussion? So we're just getting one server?
They're upgrading the controller, the telephone controller of the system we have over here and bringing it over to the Seaboard building.
One server?
Yes.
Okay, then there's going to be switches.
Right.
With IP phone, is that Internet Protocol phones?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's can be run either on anything that carries packets of information.
Right, and you could actually, one of the advantages of that, obviously, is it allows us to do some different things. From we can use more efficient what are called SIPs phone lines, which allows us, instead of having to buy banks of phone lines, we can buy smaller ones. We might not have to use as many telephone lines because we're able to do remote sites. And the other piece of it is we can take a phone, if it's an IP phone, you can obviously unplug it, plug in somewhere else, and you're right back where you were, just like you never left your office. I mean, you could actually take it to your house if you have a high-speed internet connection and operate just like you were sitting at your desk.
I was looking at the hardware. Most of the expense is with the switching units. There's separate individual switching units per location. Am I right there?
There's the base cabinet and the expansion cabinet, the ports, and all that that will sit over at the Seaboard building in the server room and be backed up and generated. So that plus 87 IP phones, which would cover the entire campus here.
You say IP phones with, okay, this campus, but how do we tie into the other places for Beaufort County, throughout the county?
That's above my IT level, but what the IT folks are telling me is that you can use that as a remote site. You can take that IP phone and connect in over at the remote sites, and it comes back over the fiber line to the controller, and it operates.
Okay, so the switching units would be more locally, but they as long as you got a line going out, you can that switching unit will switch there as well back. I mean, it's like because it's IP, yes. Probably just sending packets of information.
Yes.
All right. Did we get a second bid on this?
We did not get a second bid on this because this is the current system we have in place. We're simply upgrading the.
Excuse me. The one thing I thought that was a little elaborate, that was a lot of money, was the training cost of like almost $11,000.
Well, what we put in there was to allow for some integration as well, because there's going to be some cost in integrating the systems. There's got to be some stuff done. I don't know what all that programming is to be able to tie in like VSS and eventually tie in health department. So that's for some training and for integration.
All right. Server really wasn't that big of a cost. See, I always think servers are these servers you can rent, and you can rent them in secure locations, and you can upgrade them a lot cheaper than owning one. If we're only going to have one, I get that. If you're going to have a bunch of servers, it's always good to look to keep your servers off site.
My understanding is it's a computer, but it's a controller. I mean, it's a little bit above my IT level.
No, it'll do everything. But the switching unit it probably has software, as a platform, software, and then the switching units tell it what to do through the software on that platform. I don't know, it just seems like a lot of money to me, and we didn't get a bid, but you think it's the way to go.
Well, we've looked at using other things, but the problem is not the problem, but the reason we only have one bid is because that's the piece of equipment that sits there. No, it's not compatible with anything else. So essentially you'd have to take that system out, and if we took that system out, it wouldn't be compatible with the rest of the systems. The majority of the telephone systems in the county are the ESI systems.
Is there any chance that this could come in lower later? I mean, like, I understand the labor is going to be extensive because there's going to be a lot of networking. But
I actually don't think there's a whole lot of networking. I think it's more programming.
Programming?
I think. For what our IT folks have said, the cabling is there.
Okay. Let's put it to a vote. All those in favor? All those opposed?
It's all right. I got it in my head yet.
Good deal.
This is item 15. Sorry, let me get to it. This is the antenna site license agreement between the county and Tower Com. As you recall, last month we did the change order to provide the ability to get on the tower comm site. This is the agreement that rents space on that tower. The initial term of the lease is for 10 years, and it has four successive 5-year extensions. It also provides a 10 by 20 ground space for us to put our cabinet and our generator there. There is the annual fee, or the annual licensing fee they're going to charge us is $58.80, and it has a 1.5% inflation factor. These funds will be paid out of the 911 operating budget, and essentially it allows us to tie back into the Viper system down in Pondra, because we were unable to get on the Pondra tower because it was structurally at its maximum, and it would have cost us roughly $250,000 to upgrade that tower.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Ms. Hallie, good?
This is the USDA lease extension. If you're aware, the USDA rents space from us out at the Ag Center, and they've sent us a renewal on the lease. As you'll see, the original term expired on July 31 of 18. We always have if you'll look back at when that one was signed last time, it was December last time that one was signed too, so they're a little bit slow in their work. But the new term would be August 1, 18 to July 31 of 20. They're going to pay it back retrospectively. We also had an increase. They came back to us and said we want to rent it for the same price. We went back and looked at the CPI and said, well, the CPI has gone up. We'd like for it to be an increase and match that. So they've increased the amount by 5.9% in this new lease amount that they're going to be paying you for use of that facility out there is $58,215 a year for a term August 1 of 18 to July 31 of 20. So we would recommend your approval on that.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. Katie?
Yes, sir. Every year, commissioners are needed as representatives on 4 different boards. There were 3 boards that were vacated by Commissioner Buzzer, which is the Highway 17 Association, North Oversight, and Greenland. The others have current people on their boards, but you have the opportunity to go around, or you can ask to stay on the boards.
I'd like to be assigned to the EMS oversight. I've been attending that committee for the year. Did you interested in Highway 17?
I would love to serve on Highway 17 unless our new member would like to. I will yield to him if Stan would like to be.
He don't want it. I can tell you that right now.
Probably voted to kill that funding every year. That's what I'm saying.
You got it, Frank.
Right now, we need somebody on there.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how many years I voted to kill that funding. I don't know. What else you got?
Got Green Lamp.
Give him green lamp.
What?
Green Lamp.
Green Lantern? Just Green Lamp. What's Green Lamp?
It used to be the Head Start program.
Head Start program.
I'm sure I'd do great on that too.
Okay.
No, let's not put Stan on there.
I'll do it.
You will? Okay. You got
Green Lamp.
You got to be on something.
I don't know. Something's going to come up. Something will come up.
What? That'd be great. With what? Oh, yeah, I'll stay there.
I'd like to serve on that economic development, Mr. Chairman.
Ed's already there.
Yeah.
Currently, I think you got two, Katie. Currently, you've got Ed I'm sorry.
Ed and
Commissioner Booth and Commissioner and Chairman Evans.
That's right.
I thought you said it was vacated.
No.
They're not vacated spots. It's who gets assigned.
Okay, so we're going to redo Ed. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
I missed that. So you're coming off and he's going on?
No, I'm staying. We're both on there.
They're both staying.
Okay.
Wake up.
You're staying on the JCPC, right?
What else you need?
JCPC.
Who's that now?
Chairman. Aren't you on the JCP, juvenile?
Huh?
You're on this committee, right?
Which one?
Juvenile crime.
I thought it's
Commissioner Brian.
Brian.
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, okay.
Let him stay.
I'll stay. Don't matter to me.
How about, we okay on animal control?
That's actually Vice Chairman Langley.
The water committee, it's me and Gary and Jerry.
Stay.
You want to
Yeah,
stay
I
on.
wanted to stay.
Yeah.
Anybody want to get on it?
No, go ahead. Y'all got it.
Gee whiz.
I
about
wouldn't
finance?
mind the water committee at some point. But, you know, if you got a full
Who do we have
slate,
on finance?
wait.
Langley and myself and Brent.
And finance is a little different. You need to have two from the
But it is.
majority party.
It is.
We're good.
Yeah.
So we're holding water the same, and we're holding finance the same. Is that
Both of them the same.
It's a majority party.
Yeah.
RPO, TCC.
That's what I
We
was
just
thinking.
looking at all.
I'm with you on that, Big Ed.
Yeah. Is that,
How you
TCC.
talking my tune?
What's that?
says an alternate's needed.
RPO, TCC.
RPO, you'll be on? No, he don't be on it either.
Because under the TCC guidelines that were done, the county manager serves in the TCC role, but there needs to be an alternate for the county manager.
I thought Mr. Richardson went to
Did
the.
I come off of it when we did those rules?
Do you remember the last meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because I asked him, I said, do the boards need to appoint there? And they said, no, the county manager serves in that role. You need an alternate.
Okay. That's fine with me. I'm not looking for more to do.
But you would be the alternate, is that what you're saying?
I'll be the alternate, yeah.
Highway 17
RPO,
guru.
TAC. I'm on that.
Who's the alternate?
Yes, sir. You currently serve on that, but there's also an alternate needed for that one as well.
Which one is that?
RPO, TCA.
TAC.
Technically, that's the elected group. The TCC is majority staff group.
You need to get on
Is
that.
the technical coordinating committee
I'll
that
be
makes
the
the
alternate.
recommendation to
I'll
the
be his
TAC.
That'd be great. Booth is an alternate on TAC.
Okay.
Only go when you don't go right.
Well, not necessarily. Are we good with that?
Doesn't require a motion. So it's
Right, thank you.
If there are appointments, well, how does it not require a motion?
they're actually appointed by
The chairman.
each year.
When is that, where is that written? It's never been done that way before.
Yes, it
These-
is.
Yeah, they is.
They've always been voted on by the board. They've always been confirmed. Yes, they have. You guys may have changed it back when you were chairman, Cherry, but I mean, I've been here a while. I know how it works.
I've been here 18 years.
Well, it's changed from what it was. It was a vote. And that's fine with me if you want to do it that way, but I mean, when a bunch of guys are sitting up here mumbling this and mumbling that, nobody's voted on anything. You've just sort of groupied it.
Well, you got it.
Give me an option.
You know, it doesn't mean anything.
18.
18. Katie,
Pardon?
on number 18, appointment to the Workforce Development Board.
As I told you last month, an appointment is needed for the Workforce Development Board. We now have a person interested in taking up that position, which is Ms. Mary Kingston. It's up to you whether you would like to nominate her or not.
What agency is she with?
She is with,
Iconic.
Is that-
Marine.
Okay, that's what she's on.
Go
She
ahead.
is the Human Resource and Safety Director.
Good enough. So it's got to be somebody that's from a factory, right?
Yep.
Good enough.
sorry.
Do you need a vote on that?
You need one.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Raise your right hand. All opposed?
7-0.
Katie, you want to talk about the meeting schedule?
You have in your book the recommended schedule for next year for your meetings. I emailed all of you with these suggestions and took those into consideration and have moved the planning retreat back by 1 day so that you guys can get your ethics trainings.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Can we move that July 1st meeting to the second Monday? Because I'm going to be out of town that whole week.
The July the 1st meeting?
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah, I'm okay.
That'll be July the 8th.
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah. Do we need a motion to approve
Mr.
that?
Chairman, I recommend that we make that one change and approve this meeting schedule.
When does Labor Day fall on September the 3rd? How far away is the 3rd from Labor Day?
Monday.
That's the next
It's
day.
always the Monday.
The second.
Labor Day is the second, the Monday, and this is actually Tuesday.
Then okay, I'm fine.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed?
I'm a little confused about the planning retreat. It looks like there's 2 dates here, Wednesday, January the 30th, and Thursday, January. Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, we've got training.
I'm with you.
The new commissioners or newly elected commissioners have training on the February the 1st.
I was reading it wrong.
Where is it? That's in Greenville.
Yes, sir.
Well, we don't have to go to both days, do we? Stan goes to both days.
Yes.
Wait,
Do we have to go to both days?
No,
No.
No, we just go to that Friday.
you and I just go
Friday.
Friday.
He go a week.
not at all.
Yeah,
Okay,
It's in February.
February 1st, huh?
Katie? The
Yeah, I think
legislative
I've already-
voting delegate.
Yes, sir. I need a name for a voting delegate.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that our new chairman, Jerry Evans, be our voting
So
delegate.
moved.
All those in favor, raise your right hand.
You second.
Oh,
He did.
you recommended you to make a motion.
Well,
Whatever.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we need to go back to item number 4 under consent. Mr. Richardson, going to move that down.
Yeah, I think Charlie's here. Charlie, tell us what you're doing over there. It looks funny to me.
For commissary services for the jail for years and years and years, Oasis has been the company that we have used. We have tried for the last at least 6 or 7, maybe even 8 years on working on trying to get video visitation in the jail. We work with Securus, who is a company that works in prisons that specifically does that, and any of the plans that we tried with them fell through. So then we started looking for the commissary services. We tried with Oasis to try to get that same service in there, but they weren't able to do that with the capabilities and the facilities that we have. Kimball's is a competitor of Oasis. Over the last couple of years, they've come on strong in the state of North Carolina with all of the services. Most of those are very comparable and led by statute, by both federal and state level statute on what they can do as far as charges for the inmates and other services that they provide, but also the rates that they provide to the county in funds. The reason, and probably the main reason for the change, it is so we can finally, after years and years and years, get video visitation into the jail.
All right, and my question is, how much is this going to cost us for hardware?
We've pretty much, and there is going to be a nominal cost, mainly for the tablets that are going to be used, that we are undoubtedly going to have broken as things go on. But as far as getting into the system, we've negotiated that the hardware cost is going to be covered so they can get into the jail, and then that they can get our services moving forward.
How does an inmate use this? If there's going to be a tablet, do they have to ask for a tablet, or?
Yeah, well, I don't think that with the current facility that we have that we will ever be visitor-free inside of our jail.
No.
But we are going to try to get as far away from that as we can, and that's going to be through tablets, through pretty much Skyping, like internet service. So they're going to have to boost up signals so they can get that in that metal vault They're going to have at least one kiosk on the outside of the jail that they can run through that, and then beyond that, as long as you have internet connection and you have enough juice, then you can get those signals back and forth, and they can have that contact and see each other without being in the jail. Which, I mean, as you know, we don't have the facility right now that you can sit across from each other and touch each other. You know, you are still within a screen and view each other. So I mean, and technically speaking, in the technological age that we are in, it is the best of all worlds that we can do this.
Well, from reading that contract, it looked to me like they had mixed up within the same language was the video conferencing with the providing of whatever these snacks or whatever this other stuff is that they can buy. I mean,
yeah, it is all part of the same contract.
Yeah, but it's all mangled together.
If there's any questions or anything that needs to be amended as far as the contract language goes, I mean, that is absolutely fine. And really the only expedience that we were looking to try to get the contract approved and signed is so we can go ahead and get things moving with the hardware being brought in. But
is there initial
there is nothing emergent that we can't wait.
Is there enough upfront lump sum fee that we pay these people?
To my knowledge, no.
I didn't think I saw anything
No.
in there. But now, does this mean that an inmate is going to be able to teleconference with his lawyer?
Yes.
With this
That
system?
is what we are trying to do. We're trying to get it to the point where we can have, even to the point where we can have conferences with attorneys. We want to get to the point where we can have arraignments, or the first appearances for inmates without having to transport them different places. All of those things are on the table. I think we are going to have to do a crawl, walk, run as far as the infrastructure goes in there.
That's with this system, though.
But yes.
But if he wanted to teleconference with his lawyer, you'd put him in the private room
Yes.
by himself so other inmates couldn't hear him.
We do have a small room that's set up for conferences. A lot of attorneys do not want to come down to our jail because of our conference space that we have, but this is also one of those things that we feel that we can try to get more bang for our buck, because there's a lot of cost in us having to move inmates from other facilities and facilities that are out of the county so we can bring them back for a court date knowing that they're not going to do anything with the case, but so they can speak to their attorney, and then we take them back to wherever they are. And we're going to try to do everything that we can to mitigate that as well.
That'll save you a lot of money.
Mr. Chairman,
I believe so.
I might have missed it, I think I did, but these tablets are not going to stay with the inmate at all times.
They are not, but I guarantee you that we're going to have pieces of equipment broken all over the place. But we know it's going to be. I mean, there's plenty of things within the jail that we try to. I'll call it a semi-controlled environment. I mean, even to the point of grooming. I mean, we allow safety razors and things like that, for inmates for a short period of time. They are supervised while that's going on, and then the items are removed. So it's going to be no different than that. When we have visitation, which is usually on the weekends, that is a very draining process for our staff. And the operations of the jail are still going on. So we try to have those in times that are that on the schedule that they're light. But if there's no time or no schedule for arrestees to be brought in, so we can have all of the planning in the world, have those visitations, have a drain on our manpower, and then 12 arrestees come in, and we've still got to deal with everything that we've got going on. So it's going to be different. It is going to be better, and it's going to be a long time coming for our facility.
Who pays the fees for teleconferencing with his lawyer?
Anything that we can charge by law to the inmates gets charged to the inmates. Now, those rates are in statute, and we use it black and white. We don't use discretionary issues, even to the point of I'll give you an example, our pretrial release program. There's a lot of gray area in that. But with this, if there's a law that says that we can charge an inmate for whatever service that we provide, then we charge that inmate. And for the most part, if we can't charge the inmate and it's not a mandated courtesy or a mandated privilege, then we don't offer it in our jail.
All right, I'm about to finish. I saw something in there about debit cards or credit cards.
For if credits for the inmates, I mean, if they are going to purchase things from canteen, so if they are going to purchase additional snacks, or if they're going to purchase different approved hygiene items, then that is done through credits. So if I have a family member that's incarcerated, then I can add money to their account so they can make those payments on those items that we do not mandate that they have, but that they can have through the commissary service.
You talked about adding money to accounts, maybe with a credit card or a debit card.
Yes, we are trying. Right now, we're limited. That we're pretty much a cash only. That we've got a kiosk inside the courthouse that people can come and they can put cash in that system that for the commissary for that said inmate. We're trying to get to the point where, say, a person's in Beaufort County, but all of their family's in Minnesota, that as long as they have internet connection, then they can wire those funds to the canteen account without actually having to be in person or have that transaction.
All right. And one last thing. It was something about reconciling accounts monthly, and this should be done with someone with finance experience.
Yes.
You're going to be doing that, right?
Yes.
Somebody's going to be doing that.
Yes. And as far as the funds go, we don't have, we don't keep funds. We don't keep cash balances. We don't keep any of those items. Anything that comes through us goes straight through us and then goes to finance. We make sure and reconcile to make sure that our people are doing what we're supposed to be doing. Finance is doing that, and then we are always, if there is another look or an additional look or any look that you want, we will make sure that is done to make sure that you're comfortable and finance is comfortable with what's going on with our money.
But somebody in the sheriff's office is going to be signing off on those accounts before they go, because finance is not necessarily going to know if there's irregularities.
Yes, absolutely. We will have one staffer, which we have right now, that is directly in charge of the commissary service, and then that is going to be backed up by the chief jailer, and then the tertiary backup is going to be Lieutenant Bryan. So we'll have a person who's in charge, a backup, then a backup.
All right, that takes care of me.
I got one question, Charlie. Say somebody puts in $100 on this credit card, and the inmate is released, and he's still got $50 on it. How do you reconcile that?
There's the money is kept up as far as at the time of release. There's a request that's made, and those funds are provided to the inmate.
In cash.
Check.
It's a check.
Check.
It says a check in the contract.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to make a motion?
And once again on that is, I mean, that's a system that's backed up several different ways.
I'll second it. I'll second it. He's made the motion. I'll second it.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed.
I got one question.
We're done.
Why would they go with tablets rather than just desktops?
We have tried. We've tried. I will say that our folks in the jail tried every way that we can think possible. We've had the idea of desktops. We've had kiosks. The biggest issue with the desktops is space. The space where we would have it, because we don't want to have it in the pods, and we really don't have any other place away from that. But we did look at it. So I think that the tablets work for us because it helps us utilize the space that we have. More. It is a space problem.
I just was thinking it'd be harder to destroy a desktop.
Oh, absolutely. And
if you did anything, you might mess up the monitor.
I agree with you. If you gentlemen can visualize the inside of the jail and see where we've got the visitation booths now, that would really be the only space that we would have that we can put computers, which is an open area that we have, and that would still get damaged in fights and tussles as they're going down the main hallways and stuff that's in the jail. It seems like if there's anything electrical, that seems to be the way that the tussles end up moving.
I can see
Motion to go into closed session.
Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
If don't want to take up more of your time, but I do want to congratulate the board as it sits. It was I didn't get to know the actual layout of the board until I walked into the room. The sheriff, we had our oath ceremony and Christmas party tonight. That's why I was late, so I apologize for that. But I do want to offer my congratulations on behalf of the sheriff and myself to this board, and I look forward to working with each of you as we go through the next handful of years.
Thanks, Charles.
Okay.
Charlie, I did share your text with the new chairman.
Okay, and once again, I didn't know until I knew, so I thank you for that.
A motion is needed to go into closed session under NCGS 143.31811A3 to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, and for discussion of existing litigation, Leary v. Board of Commissioners and Beaufort County v. Amerisource Bergen Drug Corp.
So moved.
Second.
We're back from closed session. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
7-0.
You guys almost